Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Jackson, he, him.
And I'm Jenny, she, her.
And this is Tales from the Backlog, where each week I am joined by a guest to deep dive a game from our backlogs. Today's game is Hollow Knight Silksong. But before we get into that, a few quick things. If this is your first time here, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you checking out the show. Here's how spoilers work. First and foremost, we're not going to spoil the story of Hollow Knight Silksong. There is more story than you may expect from a game like this. A lot of cool reveals, and we'll save all those for the spoiler section per usual. So if you're worried about spoilers, check down in the show notes. There's a timestamp, and until then, you're safe. And if you like the show, please consider supporting however you can. You can do so monetarily at patreon.com/realdavejackson. You can also leave ratings and reviews for the show. You can tell a friend, share it with someone who loves the game, stuff like that. It's all very helpful, and I appreciate it. So, as you heard, Jenny Windom is back on the show today. Jenny is a returning guest, returning friend of the show. She's the host of Geeks and Grounds podcast, an organizer for Wholesome Games, as well as working for Ivy Road and Soft Not Week. Jenny, welcome back. You have more titles, Jenny, than the kings and queens on Game of Thrones. So glad to have you back.
Good to be back. Hopefully I don't meet the same fate as a lot of the kings and queens on Game of Thrones. Pretty gnarly histories over there. But yeah, I am so excited. I feel like I have been back for like the beefiest of games, and I feel like this is going to be no different. So very excited to get into Silksong.
Always excited to have you back. And something I thought about, we had joked in like when you were here for Blueprints most recently, we had joked, you're getting typecast with these like knowledge is power puzzle games. We have another pilgrimage game that we're talking about. We just finished talking about Final Fantasy X on your show, and another pilgrimage, a very different pilgrimage here.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And honestly, I feel like while technically Silksong is a Metroidvania, there is still a hefty knowledge is power component to it once you like learn how to play this type of Metroidvania and what the devs want you to do with this game. So yeah, I'm very excited.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the game is Hollow Knight Silksong. Once again, it is a Metroidvania developed and published by Team Cherry for contemporary consoles and PC in 2025. Team Cherry is primarily two people, Ari Gibson and William Pellin. They are co-directors for the game. Ari Gibson is credited for the art. Pellin is credited for programming alongside Jack Vine. And then we cannot leave out music and sound by Christopher Larkin. Primary credits for Silksong. Very small team, despite the huge success of Silksong, or the huge success of Hollow Knight. For Silksong, they did not decide we're going to hire 100 more people for our team and blow it all up. They're just like, no, we're just going to keep it tight and work for 7 years on it. And here's where we are.
Yeah, which honestly, I am so happy for this team because we've seen so many stories within the industry about studios that grew too fast and then have subsequently had to lay off a ton of people. And there's just a lot of volatility. And so it's nice to see that they were just like, let's keep the core of who we are. Let's keep to what we love to do. Obviously, they have the privilege and benefit of having a huge success, so they could do something like that. But it's really nice to see a success story. And we'll talk about it, I'm sure. But especially with a game as hyped as Silksong, it's really nice to see that come to full fruition and not have it like backlash, I guess, in any kind of way, at least that I have been able to see since the game launched.
There has been plenty of discourse about the game itself, which we will talk about, like the different things that spurred on that discourse, of course. But no, the game didn't come out as a mess or a waste of anyone's time, basically. Right. So it's always good. Like you said, we like to see any success stories that we can get throughout the industry, right? So. If people don't know about Silksong, we have our quick pitches for the top of the show per usual. I take the first one. I say it's the sequel to Hollow Knight, but it is an old school sequel. The kind they used to do back in the day where they're like, you played the first game, right? Are you ready for more and bigger and harder and all that stuff? That's what this game is.
Yeah, which is funny because when I saw that in the notes, I realized I don't think I've played very many sequels in general, and also definitely not in like the NES, SNES days. So that
Mm,
was a realization for me where I was like, maybe I should go back and like do a little video game history
mm.
retrospective. Um, for my elevator pitch, I said it's an incredibly challenging but worthwhile sequel to Hollow Knight that weaves explorations of religion, rebellion, and oppression alongside ideas of motherhood and community care.
Yes, absolutely. I played this on Switch 2, mostly handheld for the record. Played this on Switch 2. It took me 65 hours, about 60 hours to roll the credits on Act 3. So I did do all of that stuff. And then I played 5 more hours on the permadeath mode, and I still haven't died. So
Oh my
it's still
God.
going.
Have you progressed? I guess how far are you on the permadeath mode currently?
I just got to Belhart, so I beat one
Oh
of the
my
first.
gosh.
I beat one of the first like wall bosses, which I think has been nerfed a little bit in a post-release patch, but still, I beat
Hmm.
it. Still alive.
Dang. I mean, it feels like you're getting close to finishing Act One, then I guess if you're already to Bellheart. Have you
Hmm.
done all the, I guess, have you been doing the bells as you've been moving through the environment so
No,
far? Okay.
I've just been vibing. I've just been
Yeah,
moving. I don't have
that's
any like
amazing.
intentions of finishing the permadeath mode. I just like I started it for a charity stream because I thought this would be a
Hmm.
fun thing to just watch me die in 5 minutes, but we're still going.
That's amazing. Well, that's the way to do it though. You start and you say, I'm just gonna vibe. And then next thing you know, you're gonna be all the way, to the Citadel and beyond
Right.
with this permadeath mode.
Hmm.
So congrats.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll keep going. We'll see how long it lasts. But
Hmm.
where did you play this, and how long was your playthrough?
I played this on the Steam Deck. I will say my or what is it? My forearms, not my triceps. My forearms and my hands definitely paid the price because I have the original Steam Deck, so it is hefty and heavy, and my hands got
Mm.
so cramped with some of these battles.
Hmm.
But it took me approximately 92 hours. And I'm honestly still, I haven't unlocked like all the optional bosses. So I feel like I'm probably going to go back, maybe not try to 100% it, but still dig at it a little bit more. And I did not actually really write down when I rolled credits the first time, and I should have, but I don't have the time for when I
Mm.
first rolled credits. But it was a long time. It
Yeah.
was probably, I think, close to the 40 or 50-hour mark, I
Hmm.
think, for me. I'm a very slow player, and that will definitely inform what I talk about with this
Mm.
game.
Fair enough. Well, it just goes to show this is a huge game. It might be the biggest Metroidvania of all time. I've played a lot of them.
Yeah.
I have not played all of them. This is certainly the biggest one I've ever played. Probably only rivaled by the first Hollow Knight at this point.
Hmm.
Like these are usually like 5 to 10, 15-hour games, and this is dozens and dozens, upwards of hundreds of hours that you can play this. So we both got all the way through to the end, the real end, and there's still
Yes.
more for both of us to do. Like there's more bosses on the permadeath mode that are only in the permadeath mode and stuff like
Hmm.
that. So this is in Team Cherry. With the first game, they kept coming out with more stuff, more free DLCs, more stuff like that. And we, at the time of recording this, there is a DLC that just got announced. So there's more stuff coming. The game just keeps giving if you love it. So, yeah. Now, let's get into our histories with this game. As you said, this game had a lot of hype at the time of its release. It was the most
Hmm.
wishlisted game on Steam. So, like, a lot of people were looking forward to this. So, Jenny, did you play the first Hollow Knight? Were you, along with the rest of us, putting on the clown masks at every Nintendo Direct, waiting for updates?
um, so yeah, I did play the first Hollow Knight. I did not go into like I honestly I rolled credit once, and then after that I was like, I'm just gonna watch YouTube for the rest of the endings and the full
Mm,
experience because the path to me even getting into Hollow Knight took me like maybe 5 or 6 attempts before it finally clicked. Hollow Knight was actually, I think, the first Metroidvania that I played all the way
Mm.
through to finish. I actually had done it on stream a few years ago, and it took me so long, and it really was an exercise in persistence. Frankly, Celeste, I finished Celeste prior to it, and that taught me a lot about the platforming that I brought into Hollow Knight that helped me have the patience for the combat in
Hmm.
addition to like running around. And then all of that has built up to Silksong. So I
Yeah.
am not like, I think for folks who are listening who are wondering about sort of the experience I bring particularly, I think what I am excited to bring to this conversation is the experience of someone who really loves this game and this has grown to love the genre of Metroidvania so much, but is not a person who is naturally adept at this game. And so I think it's it's really exciting because I think this is probably one of the best games I've ever played. And it took a lot of work for me to experience it. And I'm really happy that I took that time. So yeah, it took a while to click, but Hollow Knight played it all the way through. Silksong obviously played it all the way through. But I didn't follow the dev cycle for it, mostly because I work in the game industry and I kind of knew I knew it was gonna happen whenever it was gonna happen.
Hmm.
And I just didn't want to constantly have my hopes up all the time.
Yeah.
And there are so many other games. So I tried to like ignore it for the most part, except for when, the big announcements happened.
Right.
What about you?
Yeah, it was really easy to kind of put Silksong just in the back of your head because there were no
Hmm.
updates for years at a
Yeah.
time. And it was really just like every new showcase or something, people would just be like, all right, this is the time. And I was excited for it. I was like, okay, if it is the time, then hell yeah, let's fucking go. But there were
Right.
so many showcases that came and went without any updates at all that eventually I was just kind of like you, like, hey, when it comes out, I'll be there and I'm gonna stop freaking out at possibilities or rumors and stuff like that.
Right.
Um, but I wanted to be excited about it because number one, I think it's fun to be excited about upcoming stuff. I'm not gonna deny
Hmm.
myself that. But I loved the first Hollow Knight game. It's
Yeah.
for my money, that was the best Metroidvania ever made. That's including Metroids and Vanias in there. It's my favorite one, and it's a very early episode of this show. I want to say it's like early teens, like episode 13 or something like that. So it's like one I
Wow.
prioritized when I first started the show. Like I'm gonna do an episode about these things I played recently and some of my favorites, and Hollow Knight was one of the early ones. So Silksong had a lot to live up to, a lot of hype, and
Yeah.
it's crazy to me that with so much radio silence from them and the really long time to make the game, I just kind of built up this like idea that it's going to come out messy because that's a lot of times that's how these games come out.
Right.
The ones that take forever and you don't hear updates about, maybe they get delayed a bunch of times. Like there's a lot of stories about games in development hell that come
Hmm.
out and you're like, yeah, I can feel it. This isn't very good. And then so I was like, that's probably what's going to happen with Silksong. And then it came out and I was like, it wasn't developed. Like maybe they overscoped, maybe they took too long, maybe they tried to put too many things in the game, whatever. But it all ties together really well. And it's
Yeah.
kind of feels like a miracle to me how good this game is. Even though if you read the interview, I think Jason Schreier did with the team,
Hmm.
where they were like, we're just having fun, so like we're just making the game, having a good time, and we put it out when we felt like it was time to put it out. And you can really feel that because this is I don't know if I'm comfortable saying it's better than Hollow Knight, but it's bigger. There's more to this game than Hollow Knight, and those
Yeah.
new things are good. They add to the game. So like I think these are both 10 out of 10 like masterpieces of this type of game. It's not
Hmm.
really worthwhile for me to compare their quality. But Silksong met that bar for me.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
as with a lot of games, like there's some design decisions in here that I don't love, but they made me think about the game in a little bit like of a deeper way than just something that like didn't put up any friction or any resistance to me and playing however I thought I should play. Um,
Hmm.
this game really made me think a little bit about those decisions, and I like when games do that. And I didn't come out the other side being like, yes, perfect decision to have the longest boss runbacks of all time, outside of the Dark Souls series. And, you know, there's some boss fights where I'm like, or, you know, big encounters where I'm like, this, it's not very interesting, but stuff like that really doesn't take away from my overall take on the game. This was my number
Mhm.
2 for games of the year for 2025. And it was only because Expedition 33 just blew me away the way that it did. But
Yeah.
this was like, I loved playing this game. Loved it.
Yeah. God, I can't believe like 2025 between, Expedition 33, Blueprints, Silksong, Hades 2, like God, what a year for games.
Hmm.
Just I'm still like, and I haven't even gotten into Hades 2, but that's a whole different conversation. It's just kind of astounding the feast we have had this year.
Yeah. Hmm.
But yeah, I agree. I think I was also really nervous about the hype related to Silksong, mostly because with the kind of hype we saw, I don't think I've ever seen for any indie game ever. In all my years of working in indie games, even beforehand when I was just playing games, I have never seen this kind of hype for any indie game, and even some AAA games, to be quite frank. This was more than just, hey, I'm really excited for this new video game, insert franchise here. This was like, it got to the level of people who weren't even in games knew these Silksong memes and knew the clown paint memes. Like,
Hmm.
I had friends who weren't in games who knew this image and they were like, what is this from?
Hmm.
And that blew my mind. And I think what's really impressive to me is that the team did have the opportunity with the success of Hollow Knight to take the time that they wanted. I think it is a credit to them that even with how giant this game is, it feels still edited. It still
Yeah.
feels polished in a way where, like, they could have added a ton of stuff, but then have it feel bad. It feels great. Like, the content that I have experienced all feels important and deepens an understanding versus just kind of being like, well, that was cool. I guess moving on to the next, optional boss, whatever.
Hmm.
So it's impressive that, we talk a lot about how for studios, the limiting factor is usually time and money. And
Hmm.
you kind of have to, you pick one and you have to lean into whatever you have the most of. And then obviously your labor. But what was amazing is that this is a team that has the money, thus they can afford the time. And that still could have turned out bad. Like,
Hmm.
it still could have turned out poorly. So, um, yeah, huge credit to the team for that. And this was also my, like, I knew it was going to be in my top 3. I knew it was probably even going to be in the top 2. For me, it was edged out a little bit by Expedition 33 simply because my heart belongs to JRPGs and that kind of
Hmm.
storytelling experience. But this game is like right up there. This is like decimal 0.01% if I had to put a score on it
Yeah.
difference. I think the biggest sticking point for me ultimately, and this is one that where a lot of that discourse did come in, is that element of difficulty, where I think for myself, I am a person who has grown to appreciate that kind of challenge that this game comes with. But what makes it really hard for me is that this is a game that I cannot recommend to everybody.
Yeah.
That I would say not everybody is ready for it. And I think while the devs have definitely done that intentionally, they have made this difficulty intentionally. They have talked extensively about how they've designed it so that, pretty much anyone can access it through either backtracking, taking more time, practicing. I do feel like I wish there was some ways for people to access this game that maybe don't have that time, or maybe have, maybe they did hit a certain skill ceiling and they just don't have the ability to practice or learn more and they still want to enjoy the game. That's really my
Yeah.
only feedback about it. Um, Again, I know that the devs did this intentionally and I do appreciate it to a point, but there are people who I think would, especially with the story of this game, once you get into it, really appreciate it. And I wish I could tell more people to play it. But like,
Yeah.
I have friends who are parents who, even if they're skilled at it, they don't have the time to put in the kind of practice. And so that's the only thing for me that makes me really sad. Plus
Yeah.
some of the runbacks. We'll talk about the design of some of
Yeah,
these
we'll talk about that.
runbacks.
Yeah. I think that when talking about difficulty and accessibility, like both can be true. I think that
Yeah.
you can appreciate the intentional design of the challenge and the design of the difficulty and creating these things to overcome. And you can appreciate that. You can say like, this is really well made. I think it's really well tuned. At the same time, it would not take away from that to introduce something that would make the game more accessible to a larger group of people. And I basically like I come from like a background of playing a lot of the Souls games, famously not without difficulty modes. And then I played Lies of P, which has 100 difficulty modes, and it didn't change the experience of playing Lies of P for me. I didn't bump the difficulty down at the first sign of resistance. So it's like that argument, at least this argument that I had with myself, where it's like, if it's hard, I'll just bump it down to something easy, and I'll cheat myself out of the experience or whatever bullshit I was thinking about. And then I played Lies of P and I was like, that's actually not true at all. That argument's ridiculous. So yeah, I think both are true. Like
Hmm.
we can open it up to more people, and we can also appreciate the design of the challenge, because I think
Right.
that is really, really well done, at least for me.
Yeah. I will say what I did appreciate, none of their design felt unfair. And as we delve in, we'll talk more about it. None, maybe not
I
none.
laugh
There were
because
a few.
there's some
There,
tricks.
yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like I would give this an A, like at least 95% of the time, I felt like I knew what was happening. If I messed up, I knew what was going on.
Mm.
I felt like I consistently learned and I consistently improved. So I don't think this was a game designed to be unfair, like some games kind of are nowadays. Like I feel like some games I play them and I'm like, this is intentionally designed just to be cruel to
Mm.
players. And while maybe some of the boss battles feel like that, especially at the start in this game, ultimately I grew to appreciate a lot of them and what they did. But yeah, I'm excited to delve into this because I do
Yeah.
think it was a fairly designed, challengingly designed. I just personally wish there were more ways for people to access it because it is such a good game.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel too. We do have a lot to dig into, so let's take our first music
Yeah.
break, and then when we come back, we'll set up what are you doing in Hollow Knight Silksong? In Hollow Knight Silksong, you play as Hornet from the first game, one of the boss characters, and then eventually, I should say, like, I might spoil some stuff from Hollow Knight. I'm not gonna spoil how that game ends, but like Hornet is a character that you fight a couple boss fights against, and then she's not always an antagonist in that game. I'll just say that. So Hornet's back, and you're playing as Hornet this time. Hornet is a spider with a kind of a red anthropomorphic spider standing on two legs with like a red kind of like cloak or something like that. Hornet at the beginning of this game has been captured and is being brought in this like prison carriage to the cursed land of Farloom. At the entrance to this kingdom at the bottom in this place called the Moss Grotto, Hornet breaks out of her prison transport and learns that her captors were from this citadel way, way up above, and they were going to bring Hornet up there. But you don't really know why, although if you know the story, you know that Hornet is from this race called the Weavers. They're kind of like gods. I'm not a Hollow Knight lore expert, but kind of. And you assume it's related to that, but you don't really know why. So Hornet decides, I'm going to go up to the Citadel on this path of pilgrimage that a bunch of other pilgrims are taking and basically figure out why. What do you want from me? Because Hornet kind of figures, if I leave, they're just going to come after me again. So
Mhm.
Hornet's very direct, and she's going to go directly to the source and figure out what's going on.
Yeah. This is such like a classic. Again, we have a pilgrimage tale here, and
Mm-hmm.
I am a sucker for like a good classic pilgrimage type story.
Mm-hmm.
And Act One is really fun because uh, this is when you get introduced to the world, and I'll try not to compare to Hollow Knight consistently, but I think what's really fascinating is when you enter Hollow Knight, it is a very desolate place. It is
Yeah.
very dark. Things have gone awry, and you're just kind of left wondering what's going on. My first impression going into Act One and for the beginning of this game was just how stunning everything is, how lush and beautiful. Like this is,
Yes.
in the cutscene, you come from what seems to be like a windy, dark kind of place, but when you fall down, it's like a beautiful haven. And so when we started the game, I was like, this is going to be the most, you just know this is a
Mm-hmm.
stunning experience and you're about to start something incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, this game is gorgeous to look at, and you get a nice taste of it right at the beginning. Like there's
Hmm.
that kind of set piece as you're wandering across this field in the moss grotto, and a bunch of these bugs fly up, and the green
Yeah.
bugs that go up to the top of the screen. Really,
Oh,
really gorgeous. Hollow Knight was a gorgeous game too, and I think that just maybe more obviously a lot of time to spend making it look as good as possible, but like the layers of detail going back into the background, the layers of detail in the foreground, the lights. It
hmm.
feels like there's just more. It's more lush in every sense of the word visually,
Yeah.
and starting you in that green place, as opposed to the beginning of Hollow Knight. You're in the settlement. I forget what it's called at the top, but it's
Hmm.
it's dusty and dead, and the forgotten crossroads that you go down right below, they're gray. There's nothing. There's really no life there except a couple of enemy bugs. Here you start in this lush place, and you start in a town full of people, and this is where people start their pilgrimage. And
Hmm.
one of the cool things about this too is, as opposed to Hollow Knight, where you were alone most of the time, and you didn't have like a clear direction of what you're supposed to do, just kind of go down. In this game, from the beginning, I need to go up there, and not only am I going to be making this journey, a bunch of other characters are going to make this journey too, and you'll continually find them at different stops along the road. Like Sherma,
Hmm.
one of the best little dudes
Oh,
from gaming in
I love
2025,
Sherma.
the best.
Yeah, Sherma's incredible. And I think that's what, when we look at the differences between these games, I think while ultimately Silksong, I think, is technically more difficult in a lot of ways, it asks more of the players, especially in the later sections of the game.
Yes.
The introduction to Silksong is so much more approachable to a lot of players. And from
Hmm.
my experience, simply because of the way it's structured, the narrative just kind of tells you what you need to do, whereas Hollow Knight is quite a bit more vague. And you also have these characters where, like Sherma, like these other pilgrims that you see that you immediately feel like the start of maybe not community quite yet, but you're like, all right, well, there are familiar faces here and not everything's out to kill me. Maybe maybe we'll find some nice places like this on our journey. And for me
Hmm.
as a player, that's always a reassuring moment. Like, okay, maybe not everything is going to hurt me. Maybe there's going to be some nice stuff happening along the way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the way they endear you to some of these important NPCs is really important, because Farloom is fucked. It's cursed. There's this kind of disease of this silk or something, this corrupting silk force that is
Hmm.
it's kind of warping the minds of a lot of these pilgrims. And as you go up, you see these corrupted pilgrims that they're gone. They're enemies now.
Yeah.
And you meet Sherma really close to the beginning of the game, and you're like, well, Sherma's super cute. I hope this doesn't happen to Sherma. Like,
Yeah.
automatically endearing you to some of these characters. And like, it's not just Sherma. Like across the board, basically every NPC that you meet, even if they're not like nice, even if they're not always having your best interest at heart, they're all like they're all just so I don't know, they're lovable in their own ways. Shout out, before I forget to say this, shout out to the voice acting in
Oh yeah.
Silksong. Like
Mhm.
when we think when I talk about voice acting on the podcast, it's usually to praise like the Jennifer Englishes of the world and the Troy Bakers and stuff like that. And in this game, you just got people speaking in gibberish, just doing these weirdo little lines. And that goes a long way to making you love these little characters, like Sherma's voice acting, of course. Shout out also to the fleas that you rescue that do the little
Yes.
awoo, uh, super cute. Makes you want to find more fleas, and
Mhm.
then you have like big dramatic ones like Trobio and
Oh my god.
yeah, it's
Trobio.
yeah. Trobio
That
is the new
haunts
dung
my
defender
nightmares.
from yeah. I after I played Hollow Knight, I'd go around my house doing the dung defender Doma Doma,
Yep.
and now I'm doing Trobio as I go around the
Mhm.
house. And like this seems obvious, but when we praise voice acting, it's always for these like emotional, realistic performances or whatever. And the voice acting for Hollow Knight will never win, or for Silksong will never win awards, but like it should. They're really good at what they're being asked to do.
Yeah, because the I forget what it is, the training, like a Pavlovian training we get, but when I hear, is it I call her Shakira. I think it's
Oh,
Chakra.
chakra, yeah.
Chakra. But when I hear her go, ay, 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 I
Uh-huh.
hear that in the distance. I get chills. I know there's a map that I get to get soon.
Yeah.
And like those signals for me, through the voice acting, just they instantly just change your experience and put you in a different headspace. So yeah, major shout out. This was the case in Hollow Knight as well, but I will say like Chakra and Sherma songs in particular just are
Hmm.
constantly earworms for me, right? Even now, I'm
Yeah.
constantly just humming their songs.
Hmm. I will never forget Sherma's song for the rest of my life.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
just, and it's like off tune and weird. Like it's not, it's purposely not sung on tune, and it's
Yeah.
perfect. Voice acting for Hornet also is really good. Hornet has a ton of voice lines, but again, it's not in, not speaking English or something like that. But the
Mm-hmm.
tone of voice really gives a lot of character to Hornet, and the writing for Hornet as a character and her dialogue is incredibly good. And I think
Mm-hmm.
this is another strength of Silksong is as you're going on this journey, meeting these different people, you are doing it through the lens of Hornet, who you're following along with these pilgrims mostly. It's either pilgrims or people taking advantage of pilgrims. There's like the two types of NPCs
Right.
in Silksong. And Hornet like knows that like the faith in the game it's probably not going to end well. But she's not mean to the pilgrims. She's supportive of Sherma. She's kind of like she's direct but not mean to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the other type, she's very direct and kind of like stern, like, hey, you can't cross me like the way that you're doing it with them. Like she gives off that vibe. Very cool, very
Right.
confident. I think that's why Chakra and Hornet get on so well. Is they're both cut from the same cloth in that kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
But Hornet is like Hornet's a real character with like developed backstory, a way of perceiving the world that you then perceive the world through. Hornet wants things. Hornet changes as you go through the game, especially if you do a lot of the side quests. That theme of community that you talked about earlier, you see that
Mm-hmm.
through Hornet and the ways that you help these people, even though you might know, like, you know, the thing that you hope is going to happen, it's not going to happen for you. But like, I'm still going to help out if I can. And the game, I'm not going to spoil too much, but like in order to do the whole game, you have to engage in all of that stuff. So I think that it's the developers are forcefully like making this a point to be like community building is a focal point of this story, even if
Mm-hmm.
it's, community with those that you don't 100% agree with in here. Not in a harmful way, but like people, you're not on board with the things that they believe in.
Mm-hmm.
But we're still going to band together as best we can. It's all through
Yeah,
Hornet. It's all really good, I think.
I agree. I think Hornet is which is weird because I don't feel like there was a ton of dialogue in this game. I don't think there is a ton of dialogue, but the dialogue that is there, if you are paying attention, is really specific and pointed and shows huge, I think, character growth in terms of the willingness Hornet takes in. I think Hornet is always a kind person and is always willing to do the right thing. But I think the ways that it shows her growth in terms of how she empathizes and gets more emotionally involved is really powerful and was not something I was really expecting from this story. So I was very
Right.
pleasantly surprised by that development.
Right. Like in Hollow Knight, the knight is a silent protagonist.
Right.
The knight's not a living thing. It's
Hmm.
something else. So it doesn't talk. It doesn't have, it has desires as much as you, the player, are making it do things in the game. But that's what the knight is. Hornet is a fully formed character, and as a result, you get just so much more. It's so much more rich because you're inhabiting Hornet. And like you said, the dialogue is so sharp, like sharply written, that it doesn't feel like they waste words. You're never sitting there reading paragraphs of lore dumps or anything like that. Um,
Hmm.
you're just kind of getting everyone's perspective as you go through the pilgrimage. And this is one of the things that I think takes this game up a level is you're going through this pilgrimage. It's very dangerous for all the characters that are undertaking this. You're constantly coming across pilgrims who have been corrupted, and they're no longer on the pilgrimage. They're just attacking whatever comes near them now because they've been corrupted. And along the way, you're also coming across a bunch of characters who have kind of set up a little industry for themselves by taking advantage of the pilgrims. And
Yeah.
this feeds into difficulty of the game in a way that I think is really resonant and really good. It would be kind of strange for this game to be a total cakewalk, and then the story is like, man, everything sucks. Everyone's having the worst time ever. Um, Hornet's more capable than the average Farloom citizen, but
Hmm.
you got to feel that. And I think that we'll talk about boss fights and combat and stuff a little bit later, but I think that they did some like anti-quality of life stuff in this game that directly feeds into how cruel this world is to the pilgrims. And you're on the
Hmm.
pilgrimage, so you got to deal with this shit too. So a couple of those being the game runs on a two currency system. One of them is rosaries. So like a symbol of faith that we know, rosaries, people use that as currency in here. And you need to spend rosaries for basic quality of life stuff a lot of times. Like sometimes you need to pay rosaries to use a checkpoint, to use a bench. Imagine a pilgrim who is just in need of a rest, and they need to pay $20 to use a bench to sit down and take a rest. You got to do that in this game.
Like truly hostile what is it, hostile architecture
Yeah, yeah,
almost.
exactly. Yeah, it reminds me of
For my pay to play.
traveling in places where you need to pay for public bathrooms
Yeah.
in a way, which man, nothing sucks more than needing to go to the bathroom and turning around and having to pay to use it. Um,
Hmm.
so that kind of thing. If you die in the game, they have the corpse run system. You lose all your rosaries. You have to go back to the spot where you died and get them back. You can string them up into like a rosary string so you don't lose them when you die, but you have to pay a tax to do that,
Yeah.
or to have a shopkeeper do that for you. Um,
Hmm.
there's certain areas in the game that are like lower class where you have to pay for benches, and then in like the higher class areas, benches are beautiful and free and abundant everywhere for everybody. Like, I think a lot of this stuff, does it suck to get to a place where you really need a bench and you got to pay for it and you don't have the rosaries to do it? Yeah, it sucks. I had this happen in the middle of Mount Fay, which won't mean
Oh.
anything to someone who didn't
Oh
play, but
no.
I couldn't afford the bench in Mount Fay, and it felt really bad to not be able to afford it. But
Yeah.
by that point, I was totally like in on what they're doing here. I feel it. I feel the resonance with the story and the trials of the pilgrims with some of this stuff.
Yeah. There is a very specific kind of pain that I think if you've played this game and you have like I remember one instance in particular. I had like 400 something rosaries and I wandered into a boss fight unknowingly because
Hmm.
I just wasn't paying attention. And it's like knowing that you're going to be losing those rosaries after the work it takes to build up so many, especially at the point of the game that I was. 400 was a lot. I think at any point 400 feels like a lot. Um, there's just a really specific pain that you feel losing that. And it is really interesting, I think, when we get into maybe more of the spoiler section, but looking at the ways that the rosaries, which are this physical representation of faith, which is
Hmm.
supposed to be this more transcendent, like mental, I would say, element. What's the word for it? It's like not something you're necessarily supposed to put into physical form because that's the point of faith, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that faith is equated to rosaries, which is equated to the economy of this world, is really telling as to like what's going on.
Hmm.
And again, it's like I don't think anyone, especially for us, I feel like we've talked a little bit about like, hey, these capitalistic structures, not great. Look at what's doing. Look at the way
Hmm.
labor is being represented in this game too. It's pretty wild. But I thought it was really well done, even though it's stuff that I feel like we've touched on before through various other titles. And I just I was constantly losing rosaries, and that is the experience you will have if you play this game is you're going to lose a lot of rosaries and it's going to
Hmm.
be very sad.
Yeah, it hurts.
Yeah,
It hurts to have
it
it
hurts.
happen. As you said, like 400 is a lot of rosaries to be
Yeah.
carrying around.
Yeah.
So it feels bad to lose that much. Like you'll get to a point if you play enough of these games, Souls games that do this, Silksong does it, Hollow Knight also did it. You'll get to a
Mhm.
point where eventually you're like, if I got it once, I can get it again, but it doesn't feel good to lose them, for sure.
Right.
Um, so I don't know. It helps to reinforce how dangerous this pilgrimage is. And if you care about some of the other pilgrim characters, it will reinforce like the danger that they're in. And as you mentioned, faith as it relates to like the rosaries, another big like story theme.
Mhm.
Faith in the face of all of this danger. Sure, a lot of this goes through Sherma, as Sherma is like very, very
Yeah.
faithful and devout, and just has faith that his I think it's him.
I always called Sherma her.
Yeah, I
I
don't
was
know.
like, I'm not sure actually.
I
Let
think
me
so. Yeah,
see if I can do a quick Google really fast.
right. But Sherma's faith Sherma just operates under the assumption that, like, I believe that I will make it, therefore I will make it. I believe that my faith is strong, therefore I will reach the Citadel. I will get to the place where I'm
Ooh.
trying to go. And you see this get challenged throughout the game and evolve through Sherma, which I think is really interesting. We can talk about it in the spoilers, but the way they do it is more interesting than how I thought it would happen. Credit to story.
Yeah, huge, huge credit. I did find so on Reddit someone posted Sherma is a boy question mark and they
Yeah.
have the quest Balm for the Wounded and
Right.
it says track his location when referring to
Okay.
Sherma. So Sherma is a boy and I do want to shout out cuz I wrote this down in my notes when I was playing
Hmm.
cuz it made me actually laugh out loud. But when you meet Sherma, the extent of his faith is so strong. He's like banging, I don't know, like a bell, a cymbal, I don't know, and singing,
Hmm.
and in front of a door that's locked. And you are the one that goes, hits the lever, and unlocks the door. And when you go
Yes.
back and talk to Sherma, he's like, my music and faith opened this door
Hmm.
so we can progress on this pilgrimage. And that's your introduction to this character. And it is so heartwarming and charming, even though you're like, I opened that door, my
Yeah.
little bug friend. I did this. You cannot help but love this character. It's just
Hmm.
you want everything for Sherma.
Yep. just a total MVP of an NPC, like a traveling NPC that will pop up at the different locations as you go
Mhm.
through the game. And you'll never miss Sherma because they'll always be singing the little song and stuff like that. And I never go into Metroidvanias, and I especially never go into like things that come from like the Souls-like DNA, expecting to like love characters and love storylines and be able to follow storylines in the first place. And
Right.
Silksong, I think, threads that line really well, where like you can play if you talk to everybody, you can play, you'll get to know them, you'll follow along with the story. I think in a more direct way than the first game, and in Dark Souls games if you play those. But there is still that digging. If you're the type who wants to like really put all the pieces together and get out your corkboard and string and stuff like that, there's a lot of
Mhm.
meat on the bone there too, if that's your
Yeah.
jam.
Yeah, as a player, at least for myself, I also know that usually my first playthroughs just in general are about like making it to the end, especially in games like Hollow Knight or Silksong, where the difficulty and the challenge is such a forefront and pillar of the experience. And so I know, as especially once we get to the second half, like I'm still piecing together so many elements of the story because it is quite layered. And I know I'm still trying to put all of the pieces together, even though I tried to take as copious notes as possible. There's a lot to this
Yeah.
game. So, yeah.
There is a ton going on. We did have one more theme we just want to mention. Maybe we'll revisit in the spoiler section, but a lot of the main characters and a lot of like the big power players in this game are women, starting with Hornet, but also the Weavers are,
Hmm.
I think they're all women, if I remember right.
Hmm.
And then more power players as we go. There are other kind of sub storylines about motherhood, daughterhood, and things like that throughout the game, which is cool to see. It's not something that's like thrown in your face, but if you notice it, you'll notice it. And it plays a big part in things you learn about Hornet as a character, her backstory, her role as a weaver, and things like that. I think it's
Hmm.
pretty cool.
Yeah. Um, the more I played, the more I was really impressed at how much like this for me, like motherhood and the act of caring, you could say as a parent, but especially as like mothers and daughters and the relationships and how it affects how like Hornet interacts with other characters. We meet a character called Lace, how Lace
Hmm.
interacts. Yeah, motherhood and daughterhood and just like parental care is such a huge component that colors everything you experience in this game once you get into that lore component, especially. So, very
Yeah.
excited to talk about that.
Yep, we will revisit that. And I think this is a good point to put a pin in talking about the story in general until later. Let's come back. We'll take a music break. We will talk about what it's like to play Silksong. So we already touched on it a little bit with some of those anti-quality of life difficulty choices. But to me, Hollow Knight Silksong should say 2D side-scrolling Metroidvania action platformer, basically. A lot of action, a lot of platforming. Um,
Hmm.
feels to me like an old school sequel, the type of sequel where they assumed you played the first game, you beat the first game, therefore you're now good enough to take on a bigger challenge, something different. I remember stories about like, why is Super Mario Brothers 3 so fucking hard? And it's because they're like, well, you beat the first two games, you need something harder. And this feels like that to me. And it started as DLC. A fact a lot of people know that it
Hmm.
started as DLC, so end game DLC content's going to be hard. I think that this is why the game catches a lot of people, myself included, in that uh, the first act. The first couple areas of the game are a very breezy ramp up into
Mhm.
what the game is. You fight a boss in the Moss Grotto. It's pretty simple. I think I beat it on my first try. And then once you get a couple areas in, that like DLC level difficulty really ramps up. And I think
Yep.
it catches a lot of people. There's a lot of things that they do too, like you don't have a great way to upgrade your health for a while, and a lot of bosses will hit you for 2 masks of damage
Yeah.
out of 5. So effectively, you can survive 2 hits without healing, which is not a lot. These are hard fights. And so yeah, I think that it was smooth sailing for a couple hours, and then you get to one of those tough combat gauntlets or one of the, boss
Mhm.
3 or 4 in the line, and you're like, "Holy shit, this is really hard," or some of the platforming sequences and stuff like that. That's where we get to like this, like I said, NES sequel type of difficulty. It was
Mhm.
an adjustment period for me too. I did some angry posting myself.
Yeah, it was really interesting because the first section of Act 1 lulled me into a false sense of security, I think.
Yeah.
The first
Hmm.
section of Act 1, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I played Hollow Knight. This is feeling great. Oh my gosh, am I gonna breeze through this game? Am I gonna be good at games just naturally?" Yeah, no, Team Cherry was like, "Here, hold our drink."
Yeah.
What I think is really cool just structurally about this game, I guess, can we talk about, like, there are 3 acts that we're gonna
Yes.
be talking through. And what I think is really cool is that each act kind of got me thinking and playing a little bit differently and strategizing a little bit differently, and that was really fun as a player. I loved
Mm.
that Act 1, um, it honestly felt quite linear, and then I was talking to other people, and I was like, "Wait, you're not you're not doing the same things in the same order that I'm doing." But
Yeah.
largely, I felt like most of our paths were quite, overall similar with the big beats. I feel like Act 2 for me felt both simultaneously more straightforward in terms of, like, I felt like I could handle the combat a little bit better, but it was also more
Mm.
difficult in some other ways that we'll maybe delve into when we get into the spoiler section. And Act 3 was just like kind of just I went ham, and it was just really fun because I felt like the synergies had like hit in my brain and I actually got it. I don't
Yeah.
know how else to explain it. So it was really neat to see the 3 act structure also feel like they designed slightly different strategies for the player, which was really cool.
Yeah. I
I don't know if you
remember
felt
the
the same.
No, no, for sure. Like, I remember the beginning of Hollow Knight was like a very expertly crafted, like, you go on this linear path, but you see this offshoot you can't get to yet. Then you follow the
Mhm.
linear path. You get the upgrade that lets you go to that thing you couldn't get to before,
Right.
very early in the game. And this game starts out doing that same thing. And so it feels very linear. But then if you actually like look at it, it's not. There's a lot of optional stuff in Act 1, and there's a lot of stuff that you can like
Mhm.
backdoor your way around if you're fucking around and finding out. You can do it, which
Yeah.
is it's not something that I like. I don't care if games don't have that. I guess that's how I'll say that. Like
Yeah.
Metroidvanias, I know a lot of people really value sequence breaking and stuff like that. I don't personally care because if I sequence break, I'll get myself into a situation I can't handle. So I don't generally try that hard, but this game is built that way. So like expert Metroidvania design to lead you on with these little design touches, but then also for the people who are like poking at every single corner, you can find ways around a bunch of stuff. Game Maker's Toolkit recently did a really, really good video about the world design and the act by act design of Silksong.
Oh,
Excellent video, but it said
that's
basically
cool.
what you said, where Act 1 is kind of feels linear, but it's not really. Act
Yeah.
2 is more non-linear on its face, but it's more like you have a better idea of what you need to do at any given time. And then Act 3 is just like you have this big whole map spanning thing you have to go do. And by that point, you know the game really well, so you know how to do it. I felt Act 1 was probably the most frustrating act for me as I was getting
Yeah.
used to the game. Once I was used to it, Act 2 was comparably easier, even though,
Mhm.
you know, by definition, it's not easier. The bosses are harder, the enemies are harder, stuff like that. Act 3 is a really suitable end game challenge, I think.
Hmm.
Optional end game challenge, I should say. And like the final boss of Act 3 is the hardest boss in the game by a pretty big margin, but I loved fighting it. Like by that point, I was like, I'm fully in on it. So that
Hmm.
Act 1 adjustment period, I think, filtered out a lot of people who like either didn't want to get on with what the developers were asking or couldn't get on with what the developers were asking for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And then I think once you get into Act 2, for both of us, it sounds like we kind of hit our groove a little bit more. And then it was like not necessarily off to the races to the end, but it was like, I'm in it. I can't stop playing this game type of thing.
Yeah. I think what's interesting is now that I'm hearing you say this, and especially, I don't know, I knew, at the beginning, you have what, 5 health, and you get hit once, you're already like halfway dead,
Yeah,
basically.
basically. Yep.
And so yeah, just looking at the numbers and sort of the math of it all, Act 1 is kind of the hardest because you will
Hmm.
have the least health you'll ever have. You have the least skill set you'll ever have. You'll have the least
Hmm.
tools you'll ever have, or crests. And I think it's funny how, in some ways, the game does get like, I am running and jumping and sort of gliding through areas that at the beginning of the game, I know I was tiptoeing and making sure not to go any further than I could see and hit. And so it is interesting to think about how the technical, I think, hardest part of the game is the first part, simply
Yeah.
because you just don't have anything.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of options. And as the
Yeah.
game opens up, you get a ton of different options for, how you want to build your character, what kind of like tools and gadgets you want to use. But
Hmm.
also like you can fundamentally change how Hornet moves in this
Yep.
game. Like you can equip different crests that change, change the style of attacks that you do, change the types of downward pogo. That's like your what probably one of the biggest platforming things that you do is that downward pogo thing to bounce off of stuff.
Hmm.
You start out with like the diagonal lunge for the downward pogo, which is it's hard. It's hard to adjust to. And one of the optional areas in Act 1 called Hunter's March really got a lot of people upset because it's like a very difficult platforming challenge with that idiosyncratic diagonal downward move that you have to do it.
Hmm.
That's the only way to get through these. And it's just so harder. It's just so much harder to get used to doing that. Now, I saw Hunter's March and I was like, I'll come back later. I came back 15 hours later
You
and I
were
was like,
smart.
fine with it. But I wanted to like piggyback off of something that you're saying. Like, if you get through that Act 1 challenge, I think it teaches you like really solid fundamentals of Silksong. And then you start to like bloom out with all the different ways that you can customize your character and stuff. And I think this is why my permadeath run is still going, is because they really drilled those fundamentals so well that now that I started it out, I don't have the full toolkit anymore. I don't have all my fancy, I don't have my double jump and all the things that make things easier, but the fundamentals are so rock solid. And the challenge of the game, the boss fights and the platforming challenges are so sharp. They're so sharply designed that I don't consider myself to be amazing at Silksong. I just like I know the fundamentals of it and you know, I've made it 5 hours into a permadeath run, which I never thought I would do. But I want to really credit that to Team Cherry teaching me how to play the game through,
Hmm.
I think it is mostly through Act 1. If you can get through the Savage Beast Fly and,
Yeah.
the Last Judge and Widow and some of the other bosses in Act 1 and those platforming challenges like in the Blasted Steps and stuff like that, you're going to be just fine for the rest of the game.
Yeah, again, I think this was in the Jason Schreier article, but Ari Gibson, the line that I keep thinking about is Ari mentions like if you are ever stuck, you can always go back and explore again. You can always
Mhm.
practice. You can always look for a different route to go to. And even in Act 1, when it is feeling quite linear, there are there are multiple paths you can take, because I took one of them, which is going to be fun to discuss. I took there's one, I think you mentioned going through like the blasted sands
Mhm.
area. I went through Hunter's Marsh and the subsequent Bilewater and Sinner's Road path, which was an experience. But it still taught me the same fundamentals, just in a different place. And we got to the same end result. We both still got to Act 2 through that. And so, yeah, I think this game does a really good job of teaching the fundamentals. You are forced to be patient. You are forced to move slowly at first, and that ends up being some of the best tips. Like even in Act 3 with the final boss, the final boss, I was still telling myself, don't panic. Don't panic
Mhm.
jump. Don't panic spam anything. Just breathe. Like, shake your hands out. And some of those lessons were the ones that I started with, back in Moss Grove, or the first areas. So
Mhm.
it's incredible how the game does get you those foundations from the jump and reinforces it constantly throughout.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, if you run up against something that you think is too hard, you always have somewhere else that you can go explore. There's a couple of things that they don't help this. The corpse runs do incentivize you to go back to the place where you died if you don't want to
Yeah.
give up those rosaries. And there really isn't a great way in Act 1 to get more health, which is I think the thing that most people want the most is
Hmm.
give me 2 more masks. Let me survive a third hit without healing.
Yeah.
And you can't really do that in Act 1 until much later, I think. But you can always go elsewhere and maybe try to make progress in a different direction, or to, maybe you'll get a new upgrade, a new Metroidvania upgrade that will I remember
Hmm.
going into Hunter's March and I didn't have the dash yet. And the mini boss that's guarding that area is really hard if you don't have the dash.
Hmm.
I could have just gone the other way and come back when I got the dash. I ended up beating him because I, put my bullheadedness on display and was like, I'm just going to fight this guy for an hour until I beat him. But
Yeah.
you could just go the other way. And that's a credit to this game's design, is that, if you are stuck, you always have something else you probably could be doing. Um,
Hmm.
and I'm thinking through a lot of the hardest sections of the game. And I won't say any specifics right now for spoilers. And these are things that are fun to find. But in my head, there's a couple of sections. I'll just tell you and then I'll cut it. Those things most of them had something that would have helped me if I had explored somewhere else first.
Hmm.
Like, maybe we can revisit this maybe, but there are things where it's there's things I know there's a bunch of players that bash their head up against these challenges. And in
Hmm.
my head, I'm like, I found something that helped me, directly helped me in that thing. But it took me exploring and doing other things first. And so, the game never really stops being that, where if you're this gauntlet boss or wave boss fight encounter is way too hard, there's a chance that if you just go do something else and come back to it later, something will help you. You'll
Yeah.
find something that will help you. And it kind of never stops being that way until very late. And you just
Yeah.
you have so much available to you at the end that you can kind of get into that way where you're I'm going to strategize with all my tools and find the best combination of things that I have to get through this. And that's a
Yeah.
whole different type of fun.
Yeah, it's funny because I went so long without the tools and being frugal with them, because you have such a limited number
Hmm.
of shards and of tools in general at first, that it took me the longest time to be willing to experiment with them. And then once I started, I was like, oh my God, like shout out to the tax.
Hmm.
Game changer,
MVP.
honestly.
Yeah.
Don't
MVP
don't
tool the
be
tax.
frugal with the tax. Just use
Hmm.
them. But I think talking through this, it's interesting because for me, it did, some of those gauntlet moments got to the point where I was bashing my head like against a wall. There were two gauntlet waves that I went through that I was like, I need to put this down and come back to it a different day, because
Hmm.
some of these are just pure endurance runs. And I think
Yep.
that is maybe some of the most difficult parts of Silksong for me, just as a personal challenge, was I would have the patterns. I would have, my strategy of what I was going to do to like find the sweet spot to hit when there was an opening. But then some of these battles will go on for a very long time.
Hmm.
And for me, training up the endurance is maybe the hardest part, because it requires so much time, at least for me. It required a ton of time investment. And so I
Hmm.
think that was maybe my unexpected challenge, where it wasn't even just, oh, I can't figure out what's going on. It's, do I have the stamina to do this however many rotations of this pattern until the boss is done?
Yeah. Sometimes I mean, all of these things require like a pretty intense focus, and like
Yeah.
keeping that focus up for 5 minutes is a lot. It's a lot. It's taxing on your brain just as much as it's taxing on your hands. And if you're playing on the Switch, which is just like a little bit too small still, even the Switch 2 for me, or the Steam Deck, which is pretty heavy,
Hmm.
then it gets like more physically taxing for
Yeah.
sure.
The number of times my hands have fallen asleep playing, because
Mm,
it pushes, for me, the Steam Deck pushes right on a point where it like makes my hands fall asleep, and I'm like,
yeah.
I'm giving myself carpal tunnel, but I can't let go because
Yeah.
I finally got to like phase 3 of this
Hmm.
boss battle.
Got to
So
do it
yeah,
for Sherma. Yeah.
exactly. Got to do it for Sherma.
I want to credit, we were talking about the world design too. I want to credit how good it feels to explore the game after you find a new upgrade. And, that's like the secret sauce of Metroidvanias to me, is getting a new upgrade and being like, I have all these places. I remember like
Mm,
this place, I couldn't reach this ledge, or like I needed this ability to get through a wall or something like that. And now I can
mm-hmm.
go back and check it out. This game also, following in what Hollow Knight did, basically all of your Metroidvania upgrades function also as a combat tool. They're not just a key to open a door, which is awesome. And then there's one thing that like you get on its face, it is a key to open certain doors or a key to make big story moments progress. But it has these weird little hidden interactions throughout the entire game that if you take the time to mess around with, it's incredibly cool. And it starts to give you the picture of why this game took 7 years to come out, because they didn't need to do that shit. They could have just had it be a key for, 5 big story points or whatever. But
Yeah.
I love when I get a Metroidvania upgrade and I'm like, I know how this is going to help me access new places, but also think of these combat situations where like I need to get the fuck out of this part of the screen quickly. Now I can do
Hmm.
that with this new upgrade I got and a bunch of other cool stuff. So
Yeah.
this was one of the best parts about Hollow Knight's design, also here in Silksong.
Yes. I also want to shout out the visuals in general, just for being like for me, I was never super interested in Metroidvanias or Souls likes. A lot of them were very like, well, literally had to do with space, which I'm not very like. I'm not interested in hard space type game settings in
Mm-hmm.
general, or like the Souls games are very dark and
Yeah.
broody, and I am not usually drawn to that. I will say the package that Hollow Knight and Silksong put this type of challenge in visually, this incredibly polished 2D animated bug world, uh, it makes it more approachable for a player like me to be
Mm.
like, I think this is so pretty. I'm willing to take whatever it's wanting to dish out, which is a very superficial thing, but I am a superficial person. I'm a human being. I want to like what I look at. And so
Uh-huh.
um, I think what is a testament to this game, and the visual design and the artistic design, is that no matter how frustrated I got, I could at least, once you get back to the bench, you're like, I can just take a moment and breathe and explore a little bit. And I really think this is beautiful. So I can calm down and the visuals did a lot for me when the game got so frustrating. I was wondering why I was playing it in the
Mm.
first place.
You
So yeah,
know,
shout out to that.
yeah, the visuals do that. Like I think I said before, but like everywhere you go is gorgeous. Even the most,
Mhm.
hell levels, they all look amazing within the type of design they're going for. Like Bile Water is a disaster of an area. Like from a play and pain perspective, it hurts to be there, but
Yep.
like it's gorgeous in its own way. And the other thing is the music in this game is
Oof.
incredible, every single track. And like I could have assumed this was going to happen because this was how Hollow Knight was. But every boss theme is great. And then in those levels, they all have really, it's like atmospheric, but like it's still melody driven
Mhm.
in a lot of cases. And I'm thinking of Bile Water, which is, it is the blight town of this game. It's the poison swamp. It's the, like, nobody's having fun in there. No player is like, man, I fucking love this place. Can't wait to spend
Mhm.
5 more hours in here. But like the music is gorgeous in there. And if you find a bench, and provided that it's not actually a trap, which does happen in this game too.
Yeah.
If you find a bench, you take a breath and you like look at the visuals and you listen to the music, you're like, this is actually gorgeous. The whole game is like this.
Mhm.
Um, and then like the boss fight music, if you're able to pay attention to it, is really beautiful, epic, but still melody driven, orchestral pieces. There's a lot of variation in there too. Christopher Larkin, I don't know if they've done anything like between Hollow Knight and Silksong, but even if it is just these two games, like their contribution to video game music is like super, super strong.
Yeah, I we were talking right before starting this recording, and I was saying how one of my, it wasn't like a real apprehension, but I was curious as how the music would hold up simply because for me, Hollow Knight, like I listen to Hollow Knight music when I'm working, because it is just that good. It is that much a part of my life now. And it was interesting going into Silksong and you're learning these new melodies, you're learning these new orchestrations, you're getting familiar with the worlds and building memories there. And so it's been really fun to find myself humming or thinking of Silksong tunes in the same way that I think of some of the songs from Hollow Knight, because I've now spent so much time in this world. I have these memories associated. I have like the songs that I turn to for comfort. Like, again, you're absolutely right. Bile Water is maybe one of my favorite themes, even though it is maybe my least favorite area, one of my least favorite areas.
Hmm.
And so it's just, yeah, just listen to the soundtrack, honestly. Even if you don't end up finishing the game or playing the game, it is beautiful. It's beautifully done. And it's a really emotional
Hmm.
soundtrack. And I don't know, I'm sure a lot of it's associated because I've played the music alongside the game, but I think you can listen to it and still feel a lot of the emotion and like the nuance in the orchestration on top of
Yeah.
like just the game lore.
Yeah, thinking of like you could listen to the track for the Cogwork Dancers boss fight and you could intuit the boss fight from just listening to that song. Like you can
Hmm.
intuit the different phases of that fight.
Yeah.
And I mean that's a standout. That is a standout boss fight just on its own. Everything that's included in it, but I think you could say a similar thing about a lot of the boss themes, just like you could for some of your favorites from Hollow Knight. There's been like
Mm.
no misstep in quality along the way. It's just as good, and it just kind of all combines together into this beautiful like mega soundtrack of kind of like how these two games just combine together into this
Mhm.
one 200-hour long Metroidvania. The soundtrack kind of feels like that too. Let's talk about those boss fights. We're on the subject. This is where a lot of the challenge comes from in Hollow Knight or in Silksong. Platforming is a big challenge. but a lot of it is boss fights. So
Mhm.
there's three main types of them. There's the big boss fights that are like you're fighting a story character. These are, what you think of when I say a boss fight. That's what you're thinking of. Then there are a bunch of others that are like a big boss monster that you're fighting, but its move set and what it is a little bit simpler. And then it spawns in a bunch of ads. And then there's the third type, which are the combat arenas that you walk in a room, the doors lock on either side, and then you have waves of enemies that come in. That third type is new in this game. I will say, combat arenas, I don't need those. I don't like them, but they did sharpen my skill. I did beat the ones I needed to beat. And then the ones where the boss comes in and it's like a very simple boss. It has like one move, maybe two, but it keeps spawning in ads all over the place. I don't love
Mhm.
those either, but I do think they're a good like situational and like spatial awareness teaching tool, if nothing else. The Savage Beast Fly is the one, it's probably the first one a lot of people are going to fight, and it's the one people are going to get really mad at. And
Yeah.
I don't like that fight either. But I will say that, like, when the Savage Beast Fly came back later in the game, I felt pretty prepared to fight it. And they keep adding on more stuff on top of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so these two, I don't know. How did you feel about these two? These are relatively new, if not brand new, to this game.
Right. I think, if we have the three categories, big bosses, I felt like for the most part, I knew what to expect in terms of challenge level. I've faced it. Usually it would take me more than a handful of tries, but I felt good. Sort of the simple bosses or like the sub bosses with the ads, I felt pretty much how you felt, where I was all right with those because ultimately I felt like I was learning from them and they were short enough where I didn't feel like I was trying them a ton of times. Um, I do have beef with the combat wave arenas.
Mm,
I think they were my least favorite part of the game personally. Um, I also know that I like Silksong, particularly as an explorer. I play as an explorer more than anything else. I like
yeah.
to walk around. I'm willing to be very slow. I mean, I spent almost 100 hours playing, so obviously I'm not playing this as a speedrunner.
Mm.
Um, and I like to take my time, explore, find the secrets, and take on enemies in very calculated ways whenever I can control the situation. And the arenas were the exact opposite, where it's like literally I have no control over the situation other than when I enter. Other than that, I just got to be ready for what it's dealing me. And I would say the arenas were some of the hardest uh, parts for me. There was one in particular in the Citadel that we'll talk about that I think many people will
Yep.
look back with tears in their eyes, pain in their
Everyone who
hearts.
played is like, we know what you're talking about. Yeah.
There was one arena in particular where it's like, I got so frustrated because I'm like, this isn't even a boss. This is just, this is an endurance test and I hate it.
Hmm.
So yeah, I have a little beef with the arenas, but overall, I think, it added some variety. Yes.
Mm.
That was kind of it for me.
Yeah. It was interesting. I was playing Silksong alongside Dark Souls 2,
Mm.
and Dark Souls 2 is kind of infamous for like challenge sickos because Dark Souls 2 has a ton of bosses and like maybe half of them are like a big mechanical challenge and the others are easy. You might die once if you don't know to get out of the way of this big attack or something, but like
Mhm.
a lot of them are pretty simple. And it's used for like a storytelling purpose to have an easy boss in a lot of those cases. And it got me thinking about Silksong, which basically there's one boss that does this really fucking well to like tell a story through having something be a little easier than you might expect. But you have all these ones where it's like the Savage Beast Fly that just continually spawns in ads, or you have these combat arenas, and it's like this is something I think the game could have done to like give yourself more of a roller coaster of difficulty instead of like a straight line, or
Mhm.
a straight incline in difficulty, is have some of these where it's like yeah, I go in, I fight this thing. It's obviously a boss fight. It might have a couple phases, but it's ultimately not hard. And maybe that tells something about the story. Maybe that tells something about the way Hornet's grown or gained skill or something like that. And I think that these are the two areas, the combat arenas and then those bosses that have all the ads, where you could have subbed some of those out for
Yeah.
some of those like break bosses. Like, I think it really did come down to like just playing this alongside Dark Souls 2. And you like in that game, you'll walk in a room, you'll see a big thing, it has a health bar, and then you just go beat the shit out of it in like 30 seconds. And you're like, all right, well, maybe it was great 1,000 years ago, but it sure is not a great character now. So storytelling again. Um,
Hmm.
so that all being said, I think the big bosses, the big ones that have these big diverse move sets, these multiple phases, they always have their own like boss theme and stuff like that. Those are excellent across the board. I can't think of a single one where I was like, I don't know what this game wants from me. And even in those others that I don't like as much, I always felt like I saw the matrix as far as like
Yeah.
how to succeed, which again, I play a lot of the Souls games. As those games have gone harder and harder with each new release, I feel less and less like I see the Matrix with those fights. And that's why I just summon help in all the Elden Ring boss fights and just get through them so I can get back to exploring. That's what I'm here for, really.
Hmm.
Um, whereas in Silksong, I always saw like, okay, this attack, I learned this attack, and now there's a very clear break here for me to heal or attack back. You're always like able to dodge and pogo attack at the same time if you learn the attacks well enough to know like it's safe to do that in this fight and
Yeah.
stuff like that. These are often like really, really creative with the move sets, and it's always so clear to me how to beat it, how to
Hmm.
be safe, how to avoid the attacks. A lot of these have like a bunch of visual noise, stuff falling or like particle effects and stuff like that. And like the music might be going crazy or like sound effects might be going crazy, but like it's all there to kind of distract you from that matrix. A lot of times, like phase 2 or phase 3 of these fights are not going to add 10 more attacks to dodge. It will just add noise and maybe like
Hmm.
one more attack to dodge.
Right.
And I love this. I think these are some of the best boss fights, like boss fight to challenge like level. I
Yeah.
think I think these are some of the best. I love them.
Yeah, agreed. I think what I really enjoyed about like the big boss fights is exactly what you said in terms of once you get through phase one, usually phase two is an amplification of speed and maybe things will start to overlap. Like you said, there's like a little bit more noise that you have to work through,
Hmm.
but patterns don't necessarily fundamentally change. That I can recall, at least not in like my memory. It's been a bit since I've played some of these bosses now, but um I really appreciated that. And I think that's where some of the combat arenas and even some of the like simple bosses fell a little bit short for me because they felt less um designed and more like let's just pile in a bunch of enemies in a space
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily RNG, but there is more chaos to it than the structure of the boss fights that I just really appreciated. And so that for me, I think was why the waves would stress me out because it's like you're constantly having to think about the different patterns of these enemies piled together. And now I'm saying it out loud. I'm like, that's probably what they wanted us to do, but I didn't enjoy it very much. So,
Hmm.
yeah. So yeah, the boss design's great for the big
Yeah.
bosses.
It does kind of feel with those arenas like they're just like, we're just going to give you every possible combination of this area of the map's roster of
Right.
enemies.
Yeah.
And it feels a little artificial in a way that the other stuff doesn't. And
Hmm.
like, I'm under no impression that this is a real, place or something like that. But it does lose a little bit of that I'm inhabiting a world type of feeling when you just,
Right.
I'm going into the 15th arena where the doors lock, and then I know I'm going to have 5 to 10 waves of enemies coming at me.
Right.
Also included in this, like if any of these bother people, like, we had issues with certain types of these big combat challenges. We have the runback system. So the checkpoints in this game are pretty spaced out, and they're very rarely right next to a big boss fight.
Mhm.
So I'm sure if I thought long and hard about it, I could come up with an example. But right now, I can't think of an example other than like the final Act 3 boss where the bench
Yeah.
is right next to the boss fight. And especially not any of like the big, maybe Act 1 when this is the most painful. Um,
Mhm.
the big ones like that. So you always usually will have a run back to the boss
Right.
fight. And this is something that Silksong and Hollow Knight obviously take a lot of inspiration from the Souls series. The Souls series has stopped this. Elden Ring has no boss runbacks. They have a thing that spawns you right outside the boss door. So they have decided that for their games, it's not the right decision to have runbacks anymore. Silksong has made the decision that they heard the criticism about how spaced out the benches were in Hollow Knight, and they're not changing. They think that this is the right thing to do. So I think there's two schools of thought or ways, that players come away feeling about this. The way I felt in Act 1 is that long runbacks just put time in between my practice chances. So if I'm like, I want another chance at dodging this attack, now I have like an extra couple minutes in between chances to practice that.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe I get hit by enemies along the way and I go into the boss fight like at less than full health, which never feels good with how hard these are. The other train of thought that people brought up and which I kind of agree with, I remember Derek Yu, the developer of Spelunky and UFO 50, posted that these allow time to breathe and process in between attempts. So you're not literally like die right back in, bashing my head up against it. It's like built in time for you to collect your thoughts and maybe like get better at platforming in the case of the one in the blasted steps and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where do you land if it's one of those two on this?
Yeah, honestly, it's kinda cool that you mentioned Derek, you landed on the, like, this is your time to breathe and just, like, chill for a second, way of thinking. Makes me feel a little bit like, "Okay, I'm not just making an excuse for myself," because that is the thinking that I landed on. Again, I go into this game, I like to explore. For me, I love to platform, explore, find out the secrets. Combat is fun, but it is not what draws me to the game. And I
Right.
tend to panic when I have these really intense combat experiences. And I do enjoy them, but it's just my natural state is to panic for a little bit and then
And
and then
yeah.
find my groove. And so having the longer runbacks, they were really beneficial for me because it forced me to chill out because you have to be calm as you're getting back to the space because you don't want to like get knocked out before you go and get your cocoon again.
Yeah.
But it provided me that opportunity to sort of just think about, okay, well, what's the strategy I'm going in with this time? Or it also provided me the opportunity to say, you know what? Maybe I'm going to put this down for a little bit because I'm starting to get maybe a little tilted
Yep.
and I need to move on to something else and I can come back to this because that's not that many rosaries. I can lose that. And
Hmm.
so for me, it was a really great checkpoint opportunity versus I will say Trobio, who we'll talk about more detail, was a boss that had a super short run back that I was able to I depending on where you're coming from, maybe it's longer. I found a really nice quick place to sit before going
Hmm.
to Trobio's battle, and I think that actually made it harder for me because I would lose, instantly go back and be so overstimulated from my attempt that I just
Mm.
would be still be in my incorrect headspace. So,
Hmm.
I think as a, again, non-combat focused player, the runbacks ended up being beneficial even though I didn't always enjoy doing them.
Yeah. I think I'm somewhere in the middle where like I can appreciate that. I think that that is true. It does give you time to breathe and process. And I do think that some of those runbacks do make you better at platforming. Like I'm thinking the one with Trobio involves some platforming maneuvers and like executing those over and over, I got to a point where I was flying through that run back. And those skills transferred to other platforming challenges in the game. Same with the one in the Blasted Steps, which is pretty long. It involves a lot of pretty complicated platforming, especially if you want to make it shorter. Like you can do some skips, but you got to be better at platforming to make those skips. So I taught myself how to make that skip, and it made me better at playing the game. But did I enjoy it in the moment when I was doing it? Absolutely not. No, I didn't. So this is a situation where like I like the distance between when I played it and when we're recording it, because I've had a lot of time to think about like the intention behind the decision, because boss runbacks especially are something that like most games don't do this anymore. You'll either respawn in the boss fight in a lot of games. Like I just finished Ghost of Yote. If you die in a boss, you start at the beginning of the boss fight. There's no running back to the arena and watching the cutscene again anymore. Like we don't do that in video games anymore. And Team Cherry has decided we are going to do this. It was a deliberate choice. You don't have to agree with the choice, but I like the distance that allows me to at least consider the choice and like think about why. And I do think there are benefits to doing it this way with how hard some of these fights are. And maybe you might decide, again, like we've talked about, I don't want to do this Blasted Steps boss run. The boss at the end of it's kicking my ass. Maybe I'm just going to go the opposite direction and check something else out now. And like, see if I can find something else to help out. See if I can find a new crest or find more tools to use.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about those systems yet, but like those things are out there waiting to be discovered. And I do think that like you might get locked into a, like, I'm right in front of the boss, I got to just do this until I beat it, if you respawn right outside the boss door. Even though, again, I don't like doing the boss runs. I don't like doing it, but I think I understand why.
Yeah, I think there were maybe like 2 runbacks that caused me grief. I don't know why. I'm thinking it was maybe Sinner's Road. There was one area where I was just like, man, if I have to run through this area one more time, I'm just gonna. Maybe it was like Bile
The one
Water.
in Bile Water is, yeah.
Maybe it was Bile Water. But yeah, overall, I think as I was playing, I consciously was aware of how my decision making was changing as I was doing a run back, and I appreciated it. It felt very much like a vegetables moment. It's like, here's the vegetables with your meal, what I love vegetables, but it's like,
right.
Let me actually reflect, take a moment and understand what I'm doing and why, and like if I'm even in the headspace to do it. Also, I realized I started doing strategies of like, hey, if I just lost a boss battle, I know the cocoon is there. The run back gives me an opportunity to get some more silk. And so then when I'm in the boss battle, I don't have to immediately hit my cocoon back. I can maybe hold back and like use that as an additional reserve. And so in some cases it became a strategy where I was like, all right, this is going to allow me to maybe bank a bonus hit of silk when I go into a battle. And so sometimes it allowed me to think, more strategically.
There's a lot of similarities that I caught between Silksong specifically and the Blasphemous games, and that's one of them. I mean, rosaries and Catholic imagery and stuff, obviously, too. But and the combat arenas, those were in Blasphemous too, and I felt the same way in that game about them as I do here. But you do get into a little bit of strategy like that. Get to refill your silk, maybe save that cocoon for a moment when you really need it, for sure. So the other thing about we kind of just mentioned, and we've talked about a little bit, is the crests and the tools that you have. This is how you make character builds in Silksong. Is Hollow Knight gave you a bunch of charms, and you got to pick however many you could fit, and it would change what spells you had equipped, give you some special effects and stuff like that. Silksong adds like another layer of complexity onto that, where you get these different crests. I want to say there's like, I don't know, 6 or 7 of them off the top of my head that will change it'll like change your animations in combat. It will change how your downward pogo works. and it will change what types of tools you can equip. There's red ones that deal with combat. Those are like the tax, the
Yep.
combat tools. They do damage. You've got yellow ones, which are exploration tools, like the
Mm-hmm.
compass, things that let you let you stick to the wall when you do your wall cling ability, stuff like that. And then you've got blue ones, which are like defense, stuff related to healing and stuff like that. Different
Mm-hmm.
crests will let you equip different types of tools. Maybe this one will be like, this is all offense. You can equip 4 red ones and then one of the other types.
Yeah.
There's another one that's like, this is the explorer's kit. There's no red ones. It's all yellow and blue. And you can like switch them out, you know? Do I have an
Mm-hmm.
exploration crest and then a boss fight crest? How did you approach this one?
I think I underutilized the variety, to be very honest. I
Mm,
think I had hit sort of like my comfort build with Act 1 and Act 2. I had to. Reaper was one I went back to a couple times.
yep.
I think Wanderer was the other one. And those were maybe the two that I really played with. I got the other crests, but I honestly didn't play around very much with them because I was such like a creature of habit. And I think I probably like, shot myself in the foot a little bit with that because I think if I had expanded my horizons and experimented a bit more with the crests, I probably could have made life a little bit easier for myself with
Mm,
some of the boss battles based on just talking with friends. But I'm such like a creature of habit, at least with my builds, where I'm like, if I find something that's working for me, I'm not really going to change it until it's really not working for me. And I
mm.
didn't hit a point where I was like, I played around a lot with the tools, but the crests themselves, I actually didn't do too much with
Yeah.
personally.
There's some good creativity you can get into with the tools, and there's some
Hmm.
like interactions that you can do with like this tool will affect this other tool. Like you can there's a tool that you can use that will like poison the other tools that you throw out. So like if you
I
like to
did use that
tax,
one,
you can make
yeah.
them poisonous or stuff like that. I'm with you. I didn't mess around with the crests too much because I found the Reaper crest and I was like, this is
Yep.
perfect, and I didn't change it for the rest of the game. The Reaper crest, after you heal, it will, if you hit enemies, they'll like get these balls of silk that shoot off of them that gives you more
Mhm.
silk so you can heal more often or use your spells more often. So I was like, that's awesome. And that's the one that gives you just a regular straight down pogo move.
Yes.
And the boss fights, like the combat in this game, but especially in the boss fights in those combat arenas, it's much more aerial to me than Hollow Knight was. Like you spend a lot of time bouncing off of stuff up in the air. And so
Mhm.
I needed that pogo to be reliable. I needed to be a master of it. So that crest is pretty balanced between combat, exploration, and the defense ones.
Mhm.
So when I got into a boss fight where I was like, I would like to have more offensive capability, but it changes my move set. It changes the way my pogo works. And so it puts me at a disadvantage trying to like avoid getting hit too much for me to really mess with it. Like
Yeah.
I think it's awesome that these crests change your moves, your movement in such a noticeable way that you
Mhm.
can like if you don't like the diagonal pogo, you can change out of it and do something else. But it does make it harder to switch crests because like one boss fight's giving you problems. I
Mhm.
was much more likely to change around my tools or something like
Same.
that than switch the entire crest.
Yeah, same. I think my favorite tools, in addition to the tax, with the poison sort of buff, I guess, or debuff, I loved like the little cog, was it beetles that you get or
Hmm.
bees? Like those were some of my favorites as well. But yeah, I didn't find myself experimenting with the crests as much. Um, I also just I really enjoyed the just like variety we had where I forget what they're called, but you get like the rocks that you can use for tool upgrades or construction, as well as you can sharpen your pin a few more times, I think,
Hmm.
like 2 or 3 more times. And so I focused a lot more on that. versus building out specific builds, which is interesting because I felt like in Hollow Knight I was really into the charms and figuring out the synergies and all of that. But
Hmm.
again, for Silksong, I was like, what I'm doing seems to be working overall. I'm progressing at a quick enough pace for me. I'm not going to mess with it.
Yep.
so
Yeah, that's
so
how
I
I felt
collected
too.
it, but yeah, I didn't really use them.
It seems to me like it would be something that I would be like, it kind of sucks that it makes it harder to experiment when you feel like you need to experiment the most. But the fact that I was able to like change the way the character works to a way that felt great to me, that's a
Yeah.
great thing, I think. So like
Yes.
I can't be too mad at it. So
Yeah.
yeah. I think I've covered everything I need to say before spoilers. How you feeling?
Pretty good. I think I have as well.
It's only been an hour and 40 minutes, so yeah. Let's get into those final thoughts. So this section is quite easy. Jenny, who do you recommend Hollow Knight Silksong to?
Yeah. I recommend this game to folks who appreciate challenges, who like that feeling of satisfaction and reward if you have progressed after you try something multiple times and you've practiced for it and you feel like you've earned it in that sense.
Hmm.
I also think the type of player who enjoys like really sort of layered and maybe not overt storytelling would enjoy this. There is really great themes, really great story to experience, but is not done through a ton of cutscenes or dialogue. Rather, you see it through the environment, through the item descriptions, and you
Hmm.
piece it together through all of that. And so I think if you enjoy that kind of like layered cryptic storytelling, and you are willing to be active in your participation of the game, which is kind of a weird thing because it's like obviously you're being active, you're playing a game, but I think this game, more than like Power Washing Simulator, for example,
Hmm.
requires an active presence for you to fully and fruitfully like get what it has to deliver. So that if you like that, this is the game for you.
Yep. I think this game excels in basically everything that it's setting out to do, and I think that these different things, like you said, the story, there's a lot going on, but it all weaves together in a really interesting way, and it reinforces how difficult the game is. The combat and the platforming are challenging, but the game is like sharply designed enough. Like it the controls are perfect. Like all of that stuff. Like it's super responsive. It backs up what it asks of you. And it's really only, in my opinion, if like the challenge of it, for whatever reason, sounds like something you don't want or can't, do, because as we said, no accessibility options as far as that goes, then Silksong is not going to accommodate you, which kind of sucks that it's not accommodating everyone who wants to play it. But for everyone else, I do think this game is like really, really excellent at all of that stuff. And I came away again like super impressed by how all of that stuff coalesced together into a very one thing informs the other thing, reinforces the other thing, reinforces the other thing type of experience that like a lot of the best games do. So
Mhm.
yeah, love this. I think that if you can beat the original Hollow Knight, I think you can beat this game too, especially if you beat the Radiance and the Path of Pain and all that stuff. Like you can do Silksong. It's an adjustment at first as you get to learn like how this game is different, and it is harder to be sure. But I do think that it teaches well and it backs up what it asks. So
Mhm.
yeah. And I will agree with you also that for those who choose to fully engage with the world, do the side quests, there's something we didn't really dive into. We can do in the spoiler section maybe, but like if you do all the side quests, if you get to know the inhabitants of the world and all the different little settlements and stuff like that. The game rewards you really well for doing that in a bunch of different ways. So yeah, super cool game, Silksong.
I did want to shout, and
Yes.
feel free to cut this if you don't necessarily want to talk about mods or anything.
Mm,
I did a quick Google search, so I have not tried this mod, but I will say I looked up Silksong easier modes, and there is what seems to be a pretty well reputable, like known mod that someone did for Hollow Knight that they also then did for Silksong that allows players to hopefully access the game. Basically, you deal double damage and receive half damage. So
okay.
I think for players, because we've talked so much about this, I don't want to also feel like we're disregarding the fact that there's a mod community out there that perhaps has done work to make this game
Yeah.
accessible to folks. I have not tried it, but I think if you really do want to play this game, there are options to explore. There's just not going to be within the game itself.
Right. And only on PC. So
Yeah.
if you're playing on PC, that is an option. I always forget about mods as like a thing. I very rarely
Yeah,
mod
same.
stuff, but yeah, good to shout that out for the PC players, especially.
Yeah.
Um, so that can get more people to enjoy it. So, all right, before we get into spoilers, we'll do our plugs as usual. As I said at the top, Jenny has a lot of titles. Jenny wears a lot of hats, including a very bright yellow one right now. It's a very cool hat.
Yeah.
The hat and the hair, you've got Lakers colors going on. I like it a
Oh
lot.
yeah, I didn't even.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, we'll say that was the purpose
It was
of
the
it.
intention for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jenny, as I said at the beginning, Geeks and Grounds podcast, wholesome games, Ivy Road, Soft Knot Week, a lot of stuff that you're doing. There's probably stuff I didn't mention there. Your YouTube channel, stuff like that. Please tell
Yes.
the people about your work and where they can find you.
Yeah, I do a lot of things both within like the game industry as a game industry worker, as well as someone who just loves games. I am just most excited about Geeks and Grounds, which is
Yeah.
a game discussion club where we play games and brew thoughtful conversations together. Very similar to this, where we really appreciate not just talking about the game's mechanical attributes, but like delving into the story. And what we do is we play one game a month together. So we take a little bit more time with it. And we try to make sure that we're connecting the game to our lived experiences and things that we experienced just as human beings, because that's how I like to play games. We just got done playing Final Fantasy X, I guess, as of this recording. I'm not sure when
Yeah.
this will be live, but my recommendation is if you enjoy this deep diving on games, go take a look at the podcast list, find a game that you've enjoyed and have a listen. And hopefully you'd like to join us. It's also a Discord community, so we have threads where we discuss the games together as the month progresses, and we have a hangout every month where we can discuss it live together. So it's
Mhm.
really about trying to get discussion going with people in addition to the podcast. And you can find everything at geeksandgrounds.com. And I also do work as a content creator. I love playing games, and I'm trying to this year be better about posting more of my Let's Plays and clips. And so you can find everything at youtube.com/Kimchika, Twitch. I'm Kimchika everywhere except Instagram, where I'm at Jenny Windom. And shout out really quick to a post. I'll have to pin it, but I have actually a post on my social channels from a exhibit I went to. Got to go to Australia last fall,
Mhm.
and they had a Hollow Knight exhibit at their like video game and media arts museum,
Right.
and sorry, Silksong exhibit. And there was actually a video I took of one of the interactive maps of from Silksong, and it was just incredible. It was it Moss Grove? I always forget the name of the first area, but the first area you can actually zoom in, out, rotate it, see all the layers, and so there's like a really cool video that I
Mm.
took for folks who maybe want to take a look at that. That's like one of my favorite things I got to see in Australia. So, yeah, but yeah, Kimchika everywhere, Jenny Wyndham at Instagram, and thank you to Dave for having me here.
Of course. Yeah. Good to have you back, as always. And I was on that Final Fantasy X series on Geeks and Grounds. So if you're here almost 2 hours into it, you like me at least a little bit. So go check that out. If you want to hear us kind of deep dive Final Fantasy X over the course of 2 months, that was a lot of fun. Great privilege for me to deep dive a game I love to that level of detail. Geeks and Grounds is a great community too. It's a very supportive, welcoming community and very thoughtful in the types of discussions that you all have over there. I should say we, like I'm there, I'm part of it. Like the
Yeah, you're a
discussions
part
that
of
we
it.
have over there, very thoughtful. It's a great group of people. So definitely recommend people if you're looking for like a games club type of thing and something that moves at a slower pace than this show. Geeks and Grounds is definitely a good place to go find that. And so I'll put links to everything that Jenny does down in the show notes. Too many things to talk about all in one kind of plug, but a lot of stuff. So I'll put links down there. You can go find that. I did most of my plugs at the top. I will remind people about the Discord server for Tales from the Backlog, which is also a cool place to hang out. It's got a good group of folks. We are at the beginning of the year, so Backlog Resolutions is starting
Mhm.
up. We have made our lists of the games that we really want to play this year from our libraries, and we're off. Hopefully we're playing them by now. So we have a lot of fun doing that. If you have a lot of games that you keep telling yourself you're going to play, and you might need just a little extra reason to actually do it, the Backlog Resolutions is a fun way to join a bunch of other people that are doing the same thing. So
Mhm.
that all happens in the Discord server, and there's an invite down in the show notes. So I am going to catch my breath. We're going to take a music break. When we come back, it's going to be full spoiler time for Hollow Knight Silksong. All right, before we get to full spoiler time for Hollow Knight Silksong, I've got the customary thank yous to hand out. These upstanding folks have gone to patreon.com/realdavejackson to support the show. They are Chris Nelson, Zulgeek, Chris Copleen, Eric Guess, Rick Firestone, Nick Vicori, Soccer, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S., Matt aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Brian Skirsha, Jenny E., Marcus O'Neill, Stefan, Drellish, Rigamort, Silcanet, Levi, John E., Aliasi, Joseph Hooper, Yorkie Duval, Aaron, Squill, Alan Kress, Doug T., Retro Overdrive, One of Many Tots, Magic Crow, Tom Danks, Pieboy, Offshore Meteor, Curly Bright, Ian L., and many more. Once again, they have gone to patreon.com/realdavejackson to kick me a few bucks a month and really help out the work that I do. I thank you all a lot, and I thank you if you're listening. If you enjoy the show, please consider joining them. Once again, that is patreon.com/realdavejackson. Now, with that being said, we're on to full spoiler time for Hollow Knight Silksong. All right, we're back. It is full spoiler time for Hollow Knight Silksong, and a couple of disclaimers at the top. Number one, we're not going in a linear order. We're going to talk about boss fights here really soon. We might talk about the final boss in Act 3 really soon, so if you don't want spoilers, come back after you finish the game. The other thing is, this game is super dense. There's a lot going on. We're not going to talk about everything, and honestly, there's some stuff I don't understand, so I'm not going to pretend to understand it during the show. I'm not. Go watch Mossmouth's, or not Moss. What's Mossbag? Mossmouth is Derek Yu's company. Mossbag is the Hollow Knight YouTuber. Go watch
Oh, cool.
Mossbag's lore videos. That's not me. I'm not on that level, and that's not what this show is. So, apologies. I might get some stuff wrong, and there's some stuff I'm not going to talk about. It's just the way it is. This game is super dense. And I have chosen to do it all in one podcast, which may be inadvisable, but here we are. So let's start the spoiler section with a something easy that's going to spin out in some other directions. Let's talk about our favorite boss fights. So
Yeah.
I asked for top 5. Looks like there's some overlap in our top 5, but Jenny, what's the first one you want to talk about?
I mean, you can't talk about bosses in this game and not talk about the cogwork dancers. I think
Yes, let's do it.
I, I fell in love and then my heart broke and then I fell in love. It's just like this boss battle is in one of my, I think it's an all-time favorite boss battle, not just in
Yes.
Silksong, but just in any game I have ever played. This goes up with like honestly the mantises
Hmm.
in Hollow Knight. That was the standout for me in Hollow Knight personally. And then as soon as this battle started, it just felt magical. Um, and I guess maybe we should describe what it is even
Yeah.
before we dive in. So at this point, it's near the start of Act Two. You have just achieved the goal of reaching the Citadel, which is the location where you've been trying to go since Act One, and to figure out who were the folks that captured you and why. And as you're in the Citadel, you enter a room where these two are they mantises or grasshoppers, or I don't know what kind of bug they are.
Yeah.
Um
I want to say they're, yeah, something like that. I think mantises
yeah.
and grasshopper, no, they're not. Yeah, similar to
I'm
that.
not an
Yes. I think a lot of the bugs
insectologist.
in, right. I think a lot of the bugs in here like are not perfectly mapped onto like a
Right.
species, always, but
I'll say
they're
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 grasshopper
warrior
like.
insect
Yeah,
looking
they're
things.
warrior.
Yeah.
They're taller, they're two bugs that I think begin on like within the wall, and these are
Yeah.
actually not biological beings, they are clockwork. And so the experience of this battle are these two clockwork bugs that move both at the edges and sort of like robotically along the edges and center of the battlefield, but occasionally coming together to essentially almost an embrace.
Yeah,
And it
it is.
feels
Yeah.
like a dance. Yeah, it is
It
a
is.
literal
Yeah.
embrace. And it feels like playing a combat music box. It's so wonderful.
Yeah,
And
because they'll telegraph where they're gonna go, and
yeah.
then after a beat, they'll move along that line. So
Mhm.
you always know what direction they're going to move, and it's
Yeah.
up to you to dodge into safe area, get your counterattacks in, but it's all to the rhythm of this music. Now I'm not a music person. I don't think this is a waltz, but it's like it's a da 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 da
Mhm.
da da da, and it's like you said, it's like a music box, and they're moving
Yeah.
along, and then they come together in the middle of the screen for a big AoE attack for you mechanically to get
Mhm.
out of the way of. But if you look at the animations, it's two dancers embracing like in a ballet or something.
Oh, it's
It's so
beautiful.
cool.
It's like I I didn't want the battle to end simply because I was like, this is just fun. Like, this to me is the epitome of what some of my favorite boss experiences are in Silksong, Hollow Knight, any Team Cherry work really, because the fight design is clear. I knew what I had to do. I knew what I needed to execute, and it was still, I still had to make sure I was paying attention. I still had to make sure my game face was on.
Hmm.
Um, and it was challenging, but not insurmountably difficult in a way that didn't allow me to also enjoy just how impeccably designed it was. So this for me is
Yeah.
just top tier. What happens though is when you
Yeah.
knock out one of the dancers. I don't know if Eve, you wanted to get into that
I was like, I hope
moment.
she's going to talk about it. Yeah, of course.
Oh yeah.
Um, so when you kill one of them, and this is something that like I think you unconsciously feel, and I'll credit Daryl Talks Games for talking about this in a recent
Mhm.
video. But you might like kind of expect like the other one's going to go frenzy mode or something. It happens in a lot of duo boss fights, Ornstein
Right.
and Smo in Dark Souls. Like that's what happens. Instead, the other one tries to just continue the dance, but like there's no partner, and so it's way easier. because there's only one thing moving across the screen. And when it goes up to do the AoE, the embrace, there's no partner to embrace, so it just fails. And
Mhm.
then it's just this sad march as you slowly kill this second one too. And
Yeah.
this is that moment I was talking about earlier. Like, this is that thing that Dark Souls 2 does really well. Some other Dark Souls games where you'll fight a boss that's like, it's way easier than you thought it would be. And like for a
Mhm.
storytelling purpose, it's really strong to have an easy boss fight sometimes. And
Yeah.
that's what this second phase is. And it's like, it's sad. Like it's legitimately sad to fight the one
Yeah.
that's dancing by itself.
I got emotional. Like I got a little bit choked up because like this was a moment where I didn't want to finish the boss fight because I was like, "Oh, like I killed its partner. I felt like I did a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it. And it was so beautiful and heartbreaking and I was invested in this story. Um and what's really cool is that you find out later on that these are clockwork figures of real beings that existed or
Yeah.
that that you can encounter in a boss battle later, called the Clover Dancers, which you had a note on as well. So I
Yeah.
yeah.
The Clover Dancers are so there's an NPC that you can meet pretty early, not early, but like in Act 1 called the Green
Mhm.
Prince. You can free him from a prison cell,
Yeah.
and you can in Act 3 go into his memory of his kingdom that's lost called Verdania,
Mhm.
and the boss fight in his memory is the Clockwork Dancers fight, but it's
Yeah.
the living Green Prince and his partner who is dead. It's a an apparition of the
Yeah.
Green Prince's partner. And so in the fight you can only hurt the Green Prince. The other one's a ghost, basically. And that's like double duty storytelling because it's telling you like the tragedy of the Green Prince's backstory while
Mhm.
also being like the Citadel copied this to make these cogwork dancers. As you can see, like the Citadel is fucked, and we'll talk about it later. But I don't remember exactly like if the Citadel was directly responsible for the downfall of Verdania, and or maybe the death
Mhm.
of the Green Prince's partner. But it kind of feels like a I don't know, like a little bit of a slap in the face that they're like, we're gonna make these like guardian things out of your memory, basically.
Mhm.
But he's still alive. He's the only one left from his kingdom that's still alive. So
Yeah.
there's like so many layers to the Cogwork Dancer fight. Even with just the boss fight would have been, for my money, like the coolest boss fight in the game. Not the most mechanically challenging.
Yeah.
Uh, would be one that you'll remember for a long time.
Yeah. It's the one that I remember, and when, you were asking if some of your top boss fights, like this was instantly there for me,
Yeah.
because it was so unforgettable, and it's great because I think at the point I had encountered the Cogwork Dancers, I had started the side quest with the Green Prince, but I had not seen it to its end, and so I hadn't made the connection between the 2. So it was just a really fun experience also to have this memorable boss battle that was just, like, so beautiful, and then later on have the callback to it as you're playing
Yeah.
and progressing in future, areas of the game.
Hmm.
Um, Again, it just made everything feel so intentional, probably because it is, but it made me appreciate and want to pay attention to everything I encountered because I never knew what other boss or experience maybe would crop up again.
Hmm. I think that this boss fight is pretty unique among the fights in the
Mhm.
game. Like I don't think a lot of them do
No.
the layering that this fight does, but they do it so well here. And the other ones, they're good enough. They stand on their own as just like mechanical challenges, I think. But this one's just something special. So,
Yeah.
every game like this will have a couple that just pop, and this is one of them. One of them for me also was Trobio, was the first one I wrote down, just because the little guy is so fucking he's so memorable that the fight itself it's not like my favorite mechanical fight in the game, but like the show of it. Like it takes place
Yeah.
on a theater stage, and there's like spotlights and smoke coming up from the floor and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And he's whirlwinding around and yelling Trobio as he's doing the whole thing. And it's just so, I don't know. It's really hard, but I had a smile on my face because, like, how can you hate that guy?
I love that for you. 'Cause, I have a love-hate relationship with Trobio because while I loved the idea of the battle and I can appreciate watching it now, I think which is so wild considering how hard some of the other boss battles were, but I think Trobio was one of my major frustration points in the game simply
Mm,
because the combination I think it was maybe one of the most visually stimulating battles where you have the fireworks, um, there are literal balls just bouncing around that turn into sort of lasers, and then Trobio on top of that happening, especially by phase three, um, does his whirlwind at the same time at
uh-huh.
least a couple of times for me where I'm just like, you're not even waiting for these other attacks to resolve.
Mm,
And so the overstimulation I felt with Trobio's, and then he's yelling Trobio the entire time. And I felt so overstimulated and just like panicked that entire battle, no
mm.
matter how much I tried to calm myself down. But I did love it, but I hated it when I had to do it.
Yeah. It
Combined
would
with
be
the
one.
fact, oh, with the short run back, which we talked about,
Yes.
did not help my
Right.
panic. So,
Right. It would be one that maybe like if you were to watch a video of someone else fighting Trobio, you'd be
yeah.
like, man, look at how cool this is. Like they designed the theater and the lights and the smoke and
Yeah.
all that and the fireworks and all that stuff. Um there's a second Trobio fight. Did you do that one too?
I did not do that one.
Okay. There's a
No.
second one where it's just like it's like it's like abyssal Trobio or something in
Yeah.
Act 3
Yeah.
and it's harder, but there's a lot of boss fights that like they repeat, and the fact that you mastered the first one enough to beat it means you're already like 70% of the way there in the
Okay.
repeat version,
Yeah. Yeah.
like in the lace fights and the Phantom Trobio one, or the Abyssal Trobio or whatever it's called,
Hmm.
is kind of like that. Like the first one took me legitimately an hour of fighting, and then the second one was like, 5 attempts, I got it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think now and again, like finishing all of the like optional bosses and going back and doing like again, yeah, Abyssal, Void, Trobio, whatever. I'm probably going to give it a shot, but it took so much for me to get through the original. I'm like, I just need
Yeah.
the time to mourn and process before I move on.
Yeah.
But I have watched again videos of other people beating Trobio in like 3 minutes, so fast.
Mhm.
So I can appreciate the battle outside of
Yeah.
it.
That's the thing. Like, I'm really hard pressed to think of a boss fight in the game where it's just such chaos that there's no room for you to do anything
Hmm.
except get hit. That's how I feel about a lot of Elden Ring boss fights. For as much as I love
Mm,
that game, I feel like there's just not a whole lot that I can do in certain situations. Like I feel like there's a bunch of attacks that I don't know what they want from me. And
yeah.
I never felt that way in these big Silksong bosses. Like even Trobio with the fireworks and the smoke and all the stuff, I always felt like I can get over there. It's safe over there. Like that's my
Hmm.
safe spot. Or pogo off of these things and stay up in the air. It's safe up in the
Yeah.
air. Like always felt like there's something like that.
Yeah.
Um, what's another fight that stood out to you?
I'll go with a quick one. This is like kind of a what is it, dark horse, I guess, but fourth chorus, which is like not the most, it is not a difficult boss fight at all. But I just have a fond memory of, I believe it's Deep Docks where you find it's one of the lava sort of under
Yeah.
areas. Um, but I remember walking by where fourth chorus is, and I think you see it in the background. You're like, that's gonna be something. I
I'm
better
gonna be
watch
fighting
out.
that thing.
Yeah, I think I'm
Yeah.
gonna fight that thing eventually. And so it was just a really fun moment for me to go from I think I'm gonna fight that to on the walk back from whatever I think I got some sort of item or there's something at the end of the road and you just have to walk back. And fourth chorus comes out, and the song is just incredibly epic. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not a hard boss fight. This is one of the few that I got like first try.
Mm-hmm.
Just gonna shout that out just because it happens so rarely.
Hell yeah.
And it was just such a fun moment of like, oh my God, I'm in this world. I saw this thing. I recognized it. And the developers, like, they didn't bury the lead, it was like all there for me to interpret and be excited about. And like it happened. And so that was just a very fun and satisfying moment for me. And it was also just a nice, easy boss to get through.
Yep. Yeah, I beat that one on my first try.
Hmm.
Both times I fought it. And yeah, it's a nice moment. I remember, I don't know if I was streaming it or something, but maybe it was when I was streaming the permadeath run.
Yeah.
And I walked past it and someone was like, "Oh, you're going to be fighting that thing, aren't you?" Like someone who hadn't played the game. And I was like, "Yeah, you know, they're not just going
Yep.
to put that in the background."
Yeah. And it's the first time I think because the first time I played, I was also like, interesting, we have robots in this game. Because
Yeah.
everything before then, like you've seen the forges, but you hadn't seen like automatons or anything robotic yet. And so that was also the first time I was like, interesting. We're in a world where there are robot
Hmm.
bug things. And so that was another looking back. I'm like, oh my gosh, they put so much, even at the start of the game, for you to start thinking about and getting used to seeing, which is really
Hmm.
cool.
Yeah. If you are the type to kind of like ask those questions, right? Where you're like, I didn't know there's robots in here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can associate like basically anything like that is associated with the Citadel. So the
Yep.
Citadel put this thing down here. If you were the, the Vadi Vidya or the Mossbag type, like, why did they put this thing down here in between the
Mm-hmm.
far fields and the deep docks? Like, what's it doing down there? Stuff like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't have that answer, by the way. I don't have that answer,
Hmm.
but isn't fun to think about.
Yeah.
My next one I have like, well, not really. I was going to say I don't have a ton to say, but I love the Widow boss fight. This is the boss fight
Mm-hmm.
in Bellheart.
Yeah.
Bellheart, when you get there, all the citizens are like hanging from these silk threads and they're all just kind of like twitching. And Bellheart's been infested by this evil silk. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe that Widow, I can't remember if Widow is a weaver or just a bug that was like so taken over by the silk from the grandmother's silk that like it kind of looks like she might be a weaver, but she's not actually. I
I
can't remember the
had
answer.
I had interpreted, and for folks listening, I don't know if I am correct or not, so feel free to correct me if I am wrong. But I interpreted it that Widow was a weaver, but she has been like her wings have been clipped essentially. Like
Okay.
she has been
Okay.
so essentially disfigured and um yeah, like modified so that she's like toothless, I guess is that the phrase, fangless,
Hmm.
except for her purpose, which is to like continue this method of control.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah. And then the boss fight is a lot of fun, and it's one of those ones that like I started to understand phase 3 or phase 2. I can't remember how many phases, but like the last
Hmm.
phase is super noisy. There's like bells falling from the sky and there's like these
Yeah.
things coming up from the ground and particle effects and all this other shit. But it's like it's actually not that much more complicated than the previous phase. It's just louder. So if you can
Hmm.
tune out the noise, stick with the moves that have gotten you this far, it's actually not harder. It's
Yeah.
just busy. And I love the voice performance for Widow too, as she's like going across the room like this really frantic, like yeah, 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 like that kind of stuff as she's
Hmm.
going. Just Jesse Vitelli does this collection of gaming's best little guys at the end of every single year, and I feel like guys non-gendered. I feel like Silksong has like all the best little guys in gaming,
Yeah.
or like 90% of them. And Widow's just this little fucking freak that you're fighting in this fight. Um,
Yes.
I mean, I love the design of all the attacks and stuff like that, and I love the story in Bellheart and stuff.
Hmm.
But the fight is really fun, and it's the one where that stuff kind of started to click, where it's like, and I carried this through to future boss fights where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
it's going to get busier, it's going to get louder. It's actually not that much more complicated though. So, like you said, stay calm, don't panic. It's going to be fine. So I love the
Mhm.
Widow fight.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny because I didn't think about Widow, but now hearing you talk about that fight, I was like, yeah, actually, I really enjoyed that fight too. I enjoyed a lot of these fights. And again, it's a testament to the game because I am not a combat oriented person. Like that's just
Yep.
not what I gravitate towards. Another one that I enjoyed was Phantom, who I
Yes.
encountered um in lieu of the was it the last judge.
Right. So you
So
did the workaround.
I
Instead
did.
of going through the front door of the Citadel, you went up through the other
Yes.
side.
Totally unintentionally. I had no idea that I was
Nice.
doing a workaround. I had just gotten to the path somehow, like Hunter's Marsh. I encountered it and I was like, I'm just going to beat my head against this ant wall and
Uh-huh.
get through it. And it took me to Bilewater, which took me to Sinner's Road, to the Mist. And I was so into that exploration and like puzzle solving component because that's just what gets me fired up, that I didn't even think to explore the rest of the environment that I had open with me on the map. And I didn't think it would progress me. Honestly, I was like,
Mm.
surely this isn't going to be anything more than exploration and I'll go and find a different thing. But yeah, I encountered Phantom at the exhaust organ, Act One. And that was my Act One finale. And it was such a cool finale for so many reasons. I think narratively, it was just really interesting because we had encountered Lace already once before, I think, by that point. And we had already sort of
Mm.
started seeing this relationship between sort of like I don't know, the characters that you knew were kind of maybe related to something bigger going on. At this point, I had not connected the dots and like connected anything to the what is it, grandmother Silk.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where I started really connecting the dots with the Phantom battle. And it wasn't again, it wasn't a super difficult battle in the sense of it took me maybe 3 tries, which for me is really solid. But I think narratively, the Phantom battle was the most interesting because this is where you start seeing the themes of rebellion. You see this oppression as you've gone through the exhaust organ and bile water of the bugs that have been like laid to sort of waste by the Citadel.
Yeah.
And for me, this is where the story got truly interesting. So the Phantom fight was the culmination of this area that I was not expecting from Act One or from the game at all, really. So
Nice.
yeah.
If I remember right, so if you do the front door part way to
Hmm.
get into the Citadel, you fight the last judge, who's a fun fight, is really tough, but it's a fun fight.
Yeah.
And then you get in this elevator that's supposed to take you up to the Citadel, and the elevator fails and you fall down into the underworks. And
Yeah.
I think that I took the underworks down. I missed a door that would have like taken me, or like a breakable wall or something that would have taken me up into the Citadel. But I took the underworks down into the exhaust organ and like all the way back around to the front door of the Citadel
Oh,
because I thought
interesting.
I was like, oh, I'll go in there and then I'll just like jump over the pit that the elevator was in before. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, so I got to Phantom as I was like trying to fumble my way forward and love the fight too.
Yeah.
Like, love the, Phantom of the Opera obvious
Yeah.
comparison. Like the boss fight music has this really prominent organ and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, super fun. Beat him on the first try. Like, not a real challenge, but
Right.
not everything has to be a hateful challenge.
Right.
You could have like this cool set piece and beat the boss within a few tries, and that's good enough. So that was answering a kind of like lightning round question about how we got into the Citadel. So good
Yeah.
to see that both of us took the two separate ways, because it's one of the cool things about Act One's design is like, I thought surely there's no other way to get, because you have to ring the 5 bells and open the door and go fight the last judge. And it's like so clearly the end of the act, the last
Yeah.
protector of the front doors of the Citadel. That's what you have to do. But Silksong is like, hey,
Me
if you
over
want to go the
here.
other way. But that's the cool part about the game. Like,
Yeah.
you were just exploring and found your way there.
Yeah, it was really fun, and I think what was interesting, talking with friends who were playing at the same time and kind of progressing at the same speed as me, I noticed, like, I was talking about, and I mentioned this before, but like when you hit bile water first and you see sort of the refuse coming from the Citadel and learn
Yeah.
about that dark side before you get into the opulence of the Citadel, I think it definitely I think you can probably come to the same conclusion either way, but I think players who maybe are just going through the main route through the front door may see and experience some of that realization later. And so it was interesting coming to that conclusion a bit sooner than some of my friends who were like, I've just made it, I'm gonna get judged, I'm gonna gut through and we're gonna get to the Citadel and it's gonna be great. And I'm like, I don't know if we want to go to the Citadel. Actually, I
Yeah.
think this might be a bad thing.
It might be a
Um,
bad place.
yeah. And so it was really cool to have that set up sooner.
Yeah. Interesting in bile water specifically. That trapped bench really got me thinking about how people survive in some of these places. Like we talked
Yeah.
earlier about how a lot of these places are taking advantage of the pilgrims at every chance that they get. Like,
Right.
I have this service that it's probably you need this. Like the guy in, I want to say it's the far fields before you go up to the place, the Pilgrim's Rest, I think is like the rest
Mm-hmm.
stop, the area that's in. You have to go up this long vertical shaft using the cloak to float up. And
Yeah.
there's this one offshoot where there's a shop and there's a bench in there, but you have to pay to enter the shop, let alone
Yeah.
to like buy anything. And it's
Yeah.
like, man, they're really just squeezing everything out of the pilgrims. And then you get
Mm-hmm.
to Biowater. And if you have this in mind, and I did, and I sat on that trapped bench and it's, it sends me down into the water, or like any of the other traps that try to smash you or something like that. First of all, I know a lot of people got mad at that bench trap. I laughed. I couldn't help but laugh. Like that's, I think these games, there's a comedy to things like that, that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
underrated in games like this. But for the people that are living in Biowater, how do they survive? Any way they can,
Mm-hmm.
anything they can do to find anything of value or food or anything like that. And if it means trapping pilgrims on a bench, so be it. That's what they're doing
Mm-hmm.
to survive. And like the way that you described it as like it's like the sewer of all the, the waste from the Citadel going down in there.
Yeah.
Uh, that's how they got to survive. So
Mm-hmm.
seeing that before you get to the Citadel and seeing that side of the story. And I think this is a good time to get into talking about like the Citadel. We can
Yeah.
revisit some of these boss fights later. That's a good perspective to have before you see the Citadel itself.
Yeah, the Citadel was really interesting, and honestly, it was really fun playing Final Fantasy 7 or 10 when we were talking about religion and faith and how the game presents both of those as separate in a lot of ways, especially the bureaucracy of religion and the corruption of religion as an organization. And then getting to especially Act 2, where you knew something was going on within Bellheart. And now you see, okay, this isn't just like a one-off weird thing that's kind of happening in the lower regions of Barloom. This is something that's maybe originating here. And that's where you really start putting that together, that the Citadel isn't the haven or the holy place in a good sense for the pilgrims. This is actually the like central zone of corruption. Um, I
Yeah.
thought a lot about, and I'm excited to hear about sort of the way you were looking at faith as a theme. It's interesting because I wrote here for myself in my notes as I was playing. I wrote down religion as coercion,
Uh-huh.
pushing towards labor, towards taking a dangerous pilgrimage with no actual reward really at the end of it. Like you said, you go to the last judge, you go through the doors, the elevator took you down. The
Yeah.
elevator was
Into the
either wasn't
underworks.
working or
Yeah.
never meant to, take most people, at least, or most bugs up to the Holy Lands. It takes you
Yes.
down to a place to work.
Right. I had wondered that, like, the Citadel is kind of decrepit, so it's not beyond the realm of possibility that it's just a coincidence that the elevator broke.
Right.
But it would also make sense for it to like be like, oh, you got past the last judge somehow, like you made it in here. Congratulations, down into the pit, so you can
Hmm.
work for us. And there's a lot of cool stuff in the Citadel that reinforces this. A couple quick things. The enemies that you fight, the former pilgrims, now inhabitants of the underworks, they have almost no money. Like they drop very little reward
Hmm.
when you kill them. Everything up in the Citadel drops just rosaries all over the place. Like
Yep.
they're swimming in it. The people in the underworks have nothing. The confessional booth in the Citadel, did you find this?
Yes. Man, this was
So
so
good.
funny to me.
Yeah. You find a confessional booth in the Citadel for anyone who didn't play. It makes you pay like 20 rosaries or something to give a confession and hear, like, someone respond to your confession. Hornet puts in the money. Hornet doesn't confess, of course, because Hornet has nothing to say, nothing to confess. Hornet's not in on this whole thing, so she's just like, whatever.
Hmm.
And it just plays back this recording basically saying, you have confessed a sin most grave and must by works cleanse yourself. And then if you put in more money, it just repeats that same message over and over again. It's a
Right.
Wizard of Oz situation down there.
Hmm.
And I just think it's funny that like Hornet's the one just stoic, like obviously didn't say anything into this machine, but getting this playback message. And then you meet characters who like bought into this.
Hmm.
Later on, there's that bug that's running on the treadmill and stuff like that that says
Yeah.
like, I just
Loam,
got
I
to work
think.
harder.
Loom.
Yeah, Loam is its
Loam.
name.
Yeah.
Did you know, I found this by just researching a little bit. If you run on the treadmill with Loam for like a good amount of time, one single rosary will pop out as a reward.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, and this is one of those things where I think this brought me to just different tenets of like Puritanism, especially that I thought about, where it's like labor is the means towards goodliness and
Yes.
godliness.
Yes.
And this idea that, okay, if you work hard enough, you will be brought into the kingdom of heaven. That mentality that, at least from my history days, I kind of remember being associated with Puritanism particularly, but a lot of Christianity, Catholicism, just religion in general. It's like the idea of if you pay enough penance, this good thing will happen. And it's clearly not happening for any of the bugs in the underworks, which is so
Hmm.
sad. Because I think with the conversation with Loam, Hornet even says, like, it tries to convince Loam that maybe this isn't the right way. Maybe this isn't actually going to happen.
Hmm.
And tries to even like get Loam to reflect a little bit and think about what's actually going on. And Loam basically is like, uh, when we works enough, they'll recognize us for this
Yep.
work. Oh,
Hmm. It's great characterization for Hornet like throughout the
hmm.
whole game because Hornet meets a lot of characters that are like this, and Hornet
Right.
is always like, I know more of the truth than you do, but Hornet's never like, never belittles them
Right.
for their belief, is never like really truly angry with them at all. I guess Hornet's like, well, I have a thing of my own I have to go do. So like, hey, I tried, I did what I could, but I gotta move
Hmm.
on. But there's an empathy and a compassion to Hornet behind the like really sharp dialogue. And I think Hornet, I didn't do this, but like I think if you read a little like a maybe a side by side of like beginning of the game Hornet and like late game Hornet, there might be a little bit more like warmth in there. Or maybe it's just the feeling I got from her character as the story goes on.
Yeah, I didn't write this line. I'm trying to scroll through because I tried to screenshot and like write some lines down and I cannot find it or I didn't screenshot it. But um there was a line that When you get up to the Citadel for the first time, you eventually find this thing called the First Shrine, which is sort of a safe area for you.
Yeah.
It's where pilgrims start to come in and find a safe haven because I think they realize you've opened it up. Sherma's there. There's a character you meet called the Caretaker there that ends up playing a role in some other stuff later.
Hmm.
And Hornet is talking with the Caretaker, and there is a line where I forget what the Caretaker says exactly, but they're kind of like, "Oh yeah, are you here to just like defeat, the folks who run this place or something like that?" And Hornet actually explicitly says, I think for the first time, I could sort of take over here, but I just want to like make sure everyone's okay and I've left this place like better.
Hmm.
And I care for the people here is the sentiment. And
Yeah.
it's one of the first times you see her go from, hey, I'm willing to help off with one-off wishes, which is what we've been doing. If you've been going back through the world and backtracking, you probably
Hmm.
have done some of the wishes that were on the boards in some of the towns. But this is the first instance I remember her explicitly saying like, I could take on more power. I could do what I need to do for myself, but I also want to make sure everyone is okay. And that's like a explicit point, that with what you're talking about, where she's evolving
Yeah.
as a more empathetic character.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think the fact that again, that caretaker character is the one who gives you the quest that will like open Act 3 for you eventually, but you can
Mhm.
only do that quest if you've done a bunch of the other side quests. You got to find a bunch of fleas. You got to do a lot of side activity that like
Mhm.
within the narrative would say that Hornet cares about the inhabitants of the kingdom by doing these things.
Yes.
Um Otherwise that quest doesn't open up for you. And so I mean that's kind of like where like the game gets into some tragedy where like Hornet is trying to make things better for them by taking out this grandmother silk that's fucking things up for the whole
Mhm.
kingdom. Just basically like a parasite on the kingdom, and like, not the first story to pose the religious head as a parasite, but
Mhm.
in order for Hornet to take on that quest, you would have had to do all of those smaller quests and built up these communities and formed these bonds with other NPCs and help Sherma out and help Chakra out and these other
Yeah.
characters, that shows that Hornet cares. And that's then your reason for doing this extra stuff, because you can just go beat Grandmother Silk and get the credits and that's it. But your
Mhm.
reason for doing this other stuff is because Hornet wants to do it for the sake of everybody else in the kingdom.
Mhm.
So right on with that for sure.
Yeah. And we'll talk about the various endings, but I think what's really cool about this game at the end of the day is the way that I think some may argue like, "Oh, well, Hornet doesn't want to do these things. It's you as the player choosing to do these things." I think that with the way that Hornet is written, Hornet would have always opted to do the right thing. It's you as the player who needs to recognize that and like meet Hornet where she's at, I think.
Right.
And
Well,
that's what the game is trying to push a little bit
yeah.
more, especially when you see the first ending
Right.
well, the first ending I got at least.
Right. The first ending, if you don't do the quest with the caretaker, if you just go kill Grandmother Silk,
Hmm.
it's like it's a really hollow victory because you kill Grandmother Silk and the entire
Hollow
kingdom just gets.
victory. Hey.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's pro podcasting.
Yeah.
The whole kingdom just gets covered in these silk webs, and like things are arguably worse than before. If
Mhm.
your goal is just to kill this thing, Hornet's goal at the start of the game is to figure out why she was kidnapped. And then
Mhm.
she figures out it was Grandmother Silk because Grandmother Silk wants to use weavers like she did with Widow, which I like your
Mhm.
interpretation of Widow. So she probably wants to do the same thing with Hornet that she did with Widow. Use
Mhm.
Hornet's weaver powers to control an area and further strengthen her own position. So Hornet's like, all right, Grandmother Silk has to go. If Hornet didn't care about Farloom, then you just leave after killing Grandmother Silk, regardless of how you left it. You just leave. Your job is done.
Mhm.
But because Hornet cares, and because, you know, you can tie your own thing with the as the player in with Hornet, because everyone cares in the situation, you're going to do that extra thing to try and make things right. And you make things worse before you can make it right, but you eventually make it right,
Right.
which we'll talk about in a second. I wanted to talk about Sherma here
Mhm.
because we're talking about the Citadel. When you get to the Citadel is in disrepair. It's covered in silk. Everyone there is hostile. There's nothing like holy about this place anymore.
Mhm.
It's totally in disrepair. Um, and I was really curious about how Sherma would react, because Sherma's the one who's been the strongest, like, my faith will carry me to where I need
Yeah.
to be the whole game. And then when you get to the Citadel and Sherma sees this, instead of breaking the way that, like, if anyone played Dark Souls, the way that Solaire breaks when his purpose is taken away, Sherma becomes a little less naive about it, but her faith is not taken away. It's just the religious belief that's kind of like taken away.
Right.
And Sherma turns to helping the local community, because that's the way that yeah, the way that Sherma decides, like, this is what my new purpose is to help these people.
Mhm.
And I think that there's like some good nuance in there where, like, something like rocks your worldview to this degree, but it doesn't turn Sherma into a villain. Sherma doesn't turn into the Joker or something like that.
Oh my
Sherma
gosh.
finds new purpose.
Oh man, and this is such an interesting thread that I'm still teasing out, so it's sort of a half-formed thing I'm working with. But this idea of purpose is also really interesting because we see so many instances of purpose and the ways that it evolves or goes awry. I think Hornet
Mm,
and Sherma are great examples of folks who have purpose in the start that evolve based on their experiences in really positive ways that ultimately are about helping others, and they find like more actualization through that. But even something as simple as like the clockwork boss, where this is something designed for a purpose, and if something just goes a little bit wrong, it misses its partner, it has no ability to recover
hmm
because its purpose is lost. I think we see that in characters like Lace, like Phantom, even the Grand Silk Mother, where it's like the purpose that this character has or feels like they're put in the world for is not happening the way they planned it, and it causes their character to like really break down, and they're unable to recover from it in a lot of ways. And so I think I'm still again working through this thread of purpose, but I think that's one that you mentioning that is making me think more about.
And I think that the way that, like, Hornet helps out throughout the whole process maybe helps, but yeah, just the fact that Sherma, like, kind of takes it in stride,
Mhm.
outwardly at least, that you know, obviously this thing that I've kind of built my whole life around turned out to be a lie. How can I help? I guess it just shows, like, the goodness, the pure goodness of Sherma, that this just inspires a different way to help. Sherma goes and puts his life in danger trying to get medical supplies for the people in the camp, and you have to go help out. I think that's part of the, like, Act 3 requirements, is doing that quest. So
Yeah.
yeah, just an interesting character like that. You needed to see this through one of the characters that you care about, because Hornet was never on board with this whole, like, religion and the
Right.
pilgrimage and all of that stuff. You needed to see it through someone else. So
Mhm.
Sherma is like a really hopeful version of this for someone who
Yeah.
loses their religion, like, literally, but finds purpose in something helpful and constructive, and stuff like that. And goes into that theme of community building that you talked about too. Like, Sherma's on board with this. Chakra is on board with this. Like, Chakra, throughout the different places that Chakra moves from settlement to settlement, Chakra always,
Mhm.
like, finds high ground so that he can watch and, like, protect the people who live in the place. In Act 3, there's a part where you go to Belhart, and Chakra is outside of Belhart fighting monsters
Mhm.
outside the doors, because, like, no one else can protect Belhart, so I'm gonna do it. Um, you see these like really good community role models
Yeah.
from these side characters.
Yeah, and I think what's cool is it feels like a two-way street in that way where Hornet helps out these characters, but like Chakra's there and she's selling you maps. So she's helping you out
Hmm.
and you get to help her out. Especially there's like a side quest with Chakra's mentor that you go through that's really good.
Hmm.
And so a lot of games I feel like can kind of put you in the hero position and you are the only one sort of doling out your savior, experience in combat and everything, and you
Mm.
make everything happen. And while technically you are the player, you are doing everything to trigger the stuff in the game. I think this game feels a lot like as the characters follow you, they're doing things and they're also making stuff happen that makes it feel again much more fleshed out and true to like a real experience than just a
Yeah.
game, which is cool.
Yeah, Sherma has your back in
Yeah.
arguably, one of the hardest combats in the game is that High Halls Gauntlet. And if you do
Mhm.
Sherma's side quest, Sherma will show up and fight
Or you
those
mean
things.
chakra?
Chakra, yes. Sorry.
That would be
It would
wild if
be funny
Sherma
to see
showed
Sherma
up.
fight, but I bet Sherma kicks ass. Like
Yeah.
Sherma's like that, the old guy that you think is like, he doesn't have anything left and he's actually got everything
Right.
left. No, Chakra will show up in that High Halls Gauntlet and
Yeah.
absolutely wipe the floor with those enemies and that gauntlet is so difficult. I probably spent more time fighting that than any other boss or encounter in the whole game.
Yep.
And I left, like I did the thing, I fought it for like an hour. I couldn't do it. And I was like, I will come back after I upgrade my needle or get more hearts or something like that. And it
Mhm.
turned out I did Chakra's side quest in that time that I was away. And then I came back
Yep.
and I think you can just like hang out at the top of the arena and Chakra will just kill everything.
Oh,
Like, I think you
nice.
could probably do that. I
I
didn't,
should have
but
just
like,
done that. Yeah.
it was a great moment to have Chakra show up and just be like, hey, Dave, you're having a really hard time here. I got you, buddy.
Yeah. And that's not the only instance. If you fight oh gosh, it's the Morwing, I think.
Morwing. Right.
Yeah, if you I think help out a general or I think just there's a character there where if you talk to them and you think you can just accept their help, there are other instances where characters will step in and help you with battles if you would
Right.
like that help too. So, it added to the feeling of like it isn't just me alone trucking through this. Like there are others here that are in it with me, which feels really
Yep.
great.
Hmm. And then when I think it's Zaza and something is like the two characters, the general and then his little
Mhm.
companion.
Yes, yeah.
When he gets corrupted in Act 3, I was like, I gotta help my dude out. He's
Mhm.
he's in a bad spot. Yeah.
Yep. I think one last detail about the Citadel
Yeah.
that I noticed that I'm like, maybe it's just a design thing, but I feel like everything is intentional here. I remember somewhere, I think it was the mask maker actually, was talking about how masks are a part of a bug's individualism. Like that is how bugs show
Mm.
themselves as individuals. And I noticed that in the Citadel, the bugs there either have their faces covered or like with the cloth with the like symbol on it. They're not
Oh.
masked like the other bugs are. There are some pilgrims that still have like their normal faces, but there are other bugs that are definitely of a different order and they're masked. And so I was thinking about how also the Citadel is showing how, at least in this corrupt state, religion can also anonymize beings and bodies to just make them whatever sort of like commodity they need, at least again in this specific instance of the game.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I thought that was really interesting because again, we're talking about like how the Citadel is physically disconnected from the rest of the world. Like you can't even travel through Bell Beast, you have to use elevators to travel around there.
Yep.
Um and then it physically disconnects the people or the bugs that are there, both through some of them where they don't have masks anymore as individuals, but also obviously they're haunted and,
Hmm.
possessed.
The layers to which the like all of these story threads like weave together. It's super cool. This
Mhm.
is it's one of I was talking. This is one of the ways that like you can feel the long dev time of this game in a good way, where it's like they have all of this detail that
Right.
is woven in. We haven't even talked about like, and I don't have specific things to say, but like if
Right.
you play the needle in front of any character, they'll sing a
Yeah.
song, and they all have different songs. And
It's
like
so good.
if you're a lore hound, like I'm sure that that's a gold mine, to
Mhm.
hear what they're all singing about, to hear lost memories of dead characters and stuff like that. You can again a long time in making this game, and obviously a lot of ideas, and you can just feel like the depths to which this goes. It's just really cool to see. Real success
Yeah.
story for people putting all their ideas into the game and it not coming out as a mess or feeling bloated or something like that. I think that this is a good time to continue talking about Hornet's character and continue talking about that theme of perhaps motherhood, maybe a less, what's the word, like a protector's type of relationship that Hornet gains with some characters. We
Yeah.
talked about it a bit with Sherma, but with Lace. Lace is the other character that we haven't talked too much about. You fight Lace early in the game, and then she shows up to just kind of like taunt you every now and then to kind of tell you like, you know, you're wrong about this place. Like I there's a nasty surprise waiting for you if you keep pushing this, like that type of deal.
Yeah.
Um, and so you find out at the top again, at the top of the Citadel is Grandmother Silk. Not, not a naming mistake or a random name. Supposedly like the matriarch of this entire kingdom is
Mhm.
basically a parasite trying to draw the force and whatever is sustaining her out of all the people of Farloom. And correct me if I'm wrong, I did not brush up on my lore. Lace is like a creation out of silk, right?
Yes. Yeah. From my understanding, just a very in a nutshell, my understanding of the lore. So, Grandmother Silk has essentially like three generations of daughters that she has sort of fostered or created. The first were the Weavers,
Mm.
who were like that first generation that we know did a lot with the Citadel. There was a lot happened between the Weavers and the Grandmother, and as a result, she created, what is it, Phantom, who's kind of like the second generation of creation. But Phantom, in a nutshell, kind of, I think, rebelled, um, or sort of grew to a point where Grandmother Silk did not want Phantom around anymore. So I think Phantom was exiled to Exhaust Oregon.
Mm.
Um,
Okay.
Again, still piecing that together, but somehow that happened. Phantom was put away. And then the third generation of creation was Lace, who is like the baby of the family. And I think what I love is the characterization of Lace, because when you first meet her, she's got like the little butterfly wisps that she's conducting. She's like
Uh-huh.
very childlike and playful and kind of sarcastic and kind of pokes at you, both like physically because she'll fight you, but also just sort of like verbally, sort of like poking at you. But her character evolves so much when you encounter her later on, especially when you're right before encountering Grandmother Silk.
Mhm.
And she takes such a huge turn because, as a creation of Grandmother Silk, she just wants the love of her mother, essentially. And she is
Right.
seeing Hornet as an opponent in that love,
Mm.
or a competition point to that.
Right. And so it becomes really interesting with that in mind because with what happens at the end of Act 2, if you do that quest that's going to unlock Act 3, you basically you create a trap with the help of these shamans around or these hermits, we'll say. You don't
Hmm.
know that they're abyss shamans yet, but they're tricking you. You create this trap. You go fight Grandmother Silk again, and the theory is we're gonna get a better ending this time by trapping Grandmother Silk and sending her to the abyss, to the
Hmm.
void, where she be like sectioned off down there or whatever. And everyone else without this uh, can prosper, can live happily. And we won't have that ending where like all the silk covers the entire world and buries it. So
Hmm.
you go do that. It doesn't work the way that you plan because two things. The first one is she goes down to the abyss, but I don't know if it's not powerful enough or whatever, but these abyssal silk threads cover Farloom, which is bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Arguably worse. The abyss is bad news. And the other part is at the last second, Lace shows up as this trap is being sprung. If I remember right, Grandmother Silk grabs Hornet and is going to drag you down, and Lace knocks
Hmm.
you out of the way, but Lace gets pulled down instead. And
Yeah.
Hornet feels responsibility for this,
Yeah.
for the kingdom, but specifically, she sets her mind, I am going to rescue Lace from this.
Yes.
And so, like, that love, that nurturing, that protection that like Grandmother Silk wasn't really showing to Lace. Now Hornet is in that position and she feels the
Hmm.
responsibility and she wants to go do that. Also, I'm going to spoil an ending of Hollow Knight real quick. So skip ahead, a minute if you don't want to hear this. But in one of the possible endings in Hollow Knight, the same thing can happen where Hornet gets stuck in this like eternal purgatory instead of the night.
Hmm.
And so it kind of echoes that ending where like another character takes it for you, for your player character. And like in that ending in Hollow Knight, you don't want that to happen to Hornet. So you
Hmm.
might strive to do the ending with the Radiance and all of that stuff so that that doesn't happen. This feels the same way, but you just continue playing the game. We're going to go rescue Lace.
Yeah. Oh, it. I will say this game has made me want to go back and play Hollow Knight,
Same
particularly
here.
because Act 3 and the way that it integrates Hollow Knight's lore the
Yes.
most explicitly, of all the acts in this game. And it makes me want to play that game again so that I can more deeply understand sort of the ending that we got, the what I believe is the true ending. Um,
Yes, it is. Yeah.
so yeah, there's so point to going back to Hollow Knight after after playing this game.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think this idea of motherhood is really interesting because when I think of like in my head sort of the ideal mother figure or even just parental figure, I think of someone who is okay with their children changing, growing, and moving beyond them, or maybe even being better than me, right? Because, like,
Mm.
if I have a kid, my hope is that their life is better than mine. I hope that they have every opportunity and that they from. I hope that I don't make the same mistakes, that my parents did, and that we get to break cycles, and that we get to be
Mm.
better, and that they get to experience a better life as a result. And I think what's interesting, and again, I've only played through the game once, so I am probably missing a ton. Caveat. I think Grandmother Weaver is interesting because she keeps creating these generations of children that are for whatever reason not meeting her expectation. And
Mm.
instead of fostering them to be better or changing her behavior as a mother, she kind of just says, away with you. I'm creating another generation that's going to be the better daughters, um, from my interpretation. And so I think that's a really interesting like take on sort of this toxic parental figure.
Hmm.
Um, I think the Weavers, we see a little bit of lore that show the Weavers were fighting back in different ways or rebelling and did not want I think they wanted to overthrow Grandmother Weaver, or Grandmother Silk, but I'm still piecing that together, so not 100% sure. But I think there was
Mm.
contention more obviously there. Phantom was kind of exiled over to Exhaust Organ. And I think Lace is really interesting because she's the one who I think, as like the youngest of the family, is able to most explicitly, like, again, in this ending, she like, I think, slashed at the mother in the attempt to get Hornet away, if I'm remembering
Hmm.
correctly. So she like
I think
hurt
so.
her own mom to protect Hornet. And so it's like this contentious relationship that honestly made me want to play 1,000 times Resist again, because I was thinking about All Mother and the generations of all the different sisters and their roles, and how
Hmm.
like you created daughters for these roles that don't match, and so you create other generations in the hopes that they do better. And there's
Mm.
like a whole thing here that I need more time to delve into, but I feel like it's just rich with stuff to just dissect if we could
Yeah.
get more time with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Prime essay content if you were the essay writing type.
Yeah.
So I think it's possible that like Lace also saw something in Hornet that kind of showed her
Hmm.
like there's something outside of what I know that is possible. But
Yeah.
I think there's also, if I remember right, there's a component to Lace where she's like maybe insecure about like what she is because she's not
Hmm.
quote like organic like living, like she's kind of a manifestation or like not a ghost but like made of silk, kind of
Yeah.
unnaturally created. But Hornet decides like this is my new purpose now, is I'm going to because the whole world is covered in these abyssal tendrils and stuff, so I want to fix that. But also this person is down there where I should be, maybe. Like, I got to
Hmm.
make this right. I got to get them out. And so showing that care for Lace that Grandmother Silk maybe never showed, the same way that Hornet showed care for a bunch of other characters throughout. So I was going to talk about this in our like boss fight section, but this final boss against Lost Lace is
Yeah.
really hard. I think I have like I recorded my time when I was playing this end boss for footage, and I have like 3 hours of attempts against this. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Um, but I loved it. I loved every second of it. I felt like, again, that good feeling where it's like, this is hard, but I see the path. I see
Hmm.
how I can do this. It's just up to don't get greedy, don't panic, and learn the moves. Learn your
Yeah.
safe areas. And if the fight takes 30 seconds longer because I wasn't going wild attacking, like then it'll take 30 seconds longer. But um
Hmm.
as is the case with a lot of these like really hard fights, we both had the first sinner on our lists of
Yeah.
good boss fights. I remember fighting the first sinner, and I got to a point after maybe like a half hour of attempts where I was like, this thing can't touch me. If I play well, I will
Hmm.
not get hit because I understand this fight perfectly. And
Yeah.
I got to that point with Lost Lace. And I got to that point with a
Nice.
lot of these bosses where like Lost Lace got a few hits on me because I was like, yeah, I tried to get 3 hits when two was all I had time for, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the time I beat Lost Lace, I was like, I see it. I've broken through. Like, I see the matrix. It's happening.
That's
And
so
I did it.
cool.
It's an awesome feeling. And I don't play these games for that feeling, but I'm not going to say I don't love it when it happens.
Hmm. Yeah. I feel like I didn't have the level of success you did, but I did get to the point where I'm like, I understand the patterns.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm getting hit, but I also know how to recover.
right.
And so what was really nice, I mean, I think um, Lace ended up taking me, it was also during a point of time where I was like, I was finishing it during the holidays. There was all this stuff going on. So I'd go in for like 30 minutes, try, and then put it down, come back the next day, you know. So it took me a few days of attempts, but it wasn't like I worked on it for days. It was just like half hour here, 20 minutes there.
Yeah.
But it did take me a few days to practice and get it down, but it was doable. And it wasn't frustrating, again, like the gauntlet in the high towers of the Citadel. That is a cursed battle experience. I never want to do it again.
Yes.
But yeah, it was super rewarding. and narratively it feels really appropriate for the point that you're in,
Hmm.
both the first center as well as the lace battle.
I love how the Lost Lace fight layers in the move set from the other two lace fights.
Hmm.
Like I said, like you're 40% of the way there just because you know the attacks that Lace has used for the whole game. Every time you fought
Yeah.
Lace, it has the parry and riposte stance. Don't hit it when it's doing that.
Hmm.
Or if you're feeling really good, do hit it because you know how it's going to react and then you can punish the reaction. Like stuff like that's really cool. And
Yeah.
I didn't like flawlessly play the last time I played Lace, but I did see the Matrix in that cool way. The Lost Sinner,
Yes.
I wish I had that recorded because the last time I played it, I was like, this thing has no chance. It cannot touch me. And it felt so good.
This is why I believe you can do that no hit run. You know what I mean? The no death run. I
Well,
believe.
yeah, maybe it did take me many deaths to get to that point with the first sinner. First sinner is in this game. Lost Sinner is in Dark Souls 2. I was playing them both at the same time. A lot of sinning going on in these video games.
Yeah,
Yeah,
most
video.
definitely.
Anyway, it was a really satisfying, challenging, but really good final boss fight, I think, against Lost
Hmm.
Lace. And then the ending, I've kind of like, for the sake of time, a little bit like skipped over Act Three's kind of whole thing where you have to go to these fallen warriors, get their memories. So it's like the final exam for combat arenas and boss
Yeah.
fights and platforming and everything in these Act Three fights. Especially the one against Carmelita, which I think is a really cool fight, but
Yeah.
it's
It's
so hard.
tough. It's a tough one.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful boss arena, but
Hmm.
very hard fight.
Yeah.
Um, Something cool in Act Three is they tell you need three, um, what is it? Three hearts,
Hearts.
three,
Yeah.
yeah, hearts. But there are four sources of hearts. So
Hmm.
like, if you just can't do the Carmelita thing, you're not locked out of getting the end. There are four of them, which is
Hmm.
very nice of them.
Yeah.
Um, the one they don't tell you about is the Green Prince's quest. You can
Yeah.
do that too. And also part of that quest to get the Everbloom, so you can go down in the abyss and fight Lost Lace. Uh, when you're putting the Everbloom together, I'm not sure of the process. The shamans are helping you. You get to
Hmm.
walk through Hornet's memories
Yes.
as a child. Hornet did not have the best childhood relationship with her weaver mothers. It's like a society of weavers,
Hmm.
and it seems pretty harsh. So, you talked earlier about like breaking cycles, making things better for your children. Hornet, when she takes on the responsibility for Lace or for anybody else, she kind of embodies that, right? Like
Hmm.
she isn't this like hard ass with everybody in the way that it seems like the Weaver parents probably were to her.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting is, yeah, I forget, it was called like the Red Dreams or the Red Memory or something like that, where you see like it's like you get the three representations of mothers that Hornet had kind
Yeah.
of growing up, quote, like I guess becoming who she is. And so what's
Yeah.
cool is that, I think you get one of them's Vespa, which was like her training combat mentor, who
Hmm.
was, who instilled in her to like be sharp, be good and don't take shit,
Hmm.
basically. And then I think, is it Hera? Is that the
I
name?
didn't
Hera
I
the
did not write
Beast.
any of these down, so
I think her actual mom, who is Hera the Beast, was talking about how, because I think there's some stuff where it's like weavers are inclined to want control or power, and
mhm,
I think with that memory, she was taught to not go for power, but to go for like doing what's right. Like don't go for the stuff that people are going to tell you want to have, like
mhm.
control. And then the last one, I forget, but it was like the tree looking memory. And I think there was a lesson there too, but I am sorry I forgot what that lesson was.
It's
But it was
okay.
cool because you see the ways that these, like, essentially these three other mother figures instilled in Hornet the lessons that she's been able to put into practice as she has explored Farloom. And so that was
Hmm.
like a really cool moment of realization for me as I was playing. Um,
Yeah. So
and
it
it's
was a
sad
tough
because,
childhood, but not like a
yeah,
loveless childhood.
exactly. Like she was still taught to grow. And that's where Lace is like, it's really unfortunate for her because I think, again, grandmother Silk doesn't want her children to grow. She wants her children just to love her as a mom. And that's, again, if any listeners have not played A Thousand Times Resist and you're like, these themes are really interesting, play A Thousand Times Resist. Um, because I thought a lot about that game in looking at this idea of motherhood and where I think Grandmother Silk is going wrong, where she's like, I think love means you just do what I say. I think love means you just worship me. I think love is you're just here for me and nothing changes. And love actually means you're willing to have change, you're willing to grow, you're willing to like let go. And
Yeah.
that's the failing of one of the many failings, I guess, of Grandmother Silk
Right.
as she's sort of in her downfall.
Yeah. And it explains why Hornet's not interested in taking the place of Grandmother Silk,
Right.
even though weavers might be quote supposed to do that or expected to like, hey,
Right.
that I know a place where I can slide in and take power, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So
Ah, it's so good.
very
It's so
good. Yeah.
good.
So speaking of good, the ending is was a real shock to me, but in a very cool way.
Yeah.
So after you beat Lost Lace, Hornet's going to bring her back up out of the abyss. Again, abyss, void, not sure. Interchangeable, maybe not. I don't know. I don't care at this point. We've been podcasting for over 3 hours. Um, taking Lace out of the abyss, the Everbloom's strength to keep the abyss out. And like, just say like if I might have the cutscene, I might throw it up here in the video version, but like the visual representation of the abyss and like the prodding, like the attacking nature of it's like
Mhm.
pretty scary. And so the Everbloom is keeping it away, but the Everbloom is failing
Yeah.
and it breaks in and it starts to kind of overwhelm Hornet. And out of nowhere, the knight from Hollow Knight shows up, beats back the abyss, and brings Hornet back up to safety on the surface. And I don't remember enough about all of the endings of Hollow Knight. This was not the ending that I got. I got the
Nope.
bad ending in Hollow Knight.
Same.
But there must be a canon ending, maybe after you beat the Resonance, when the knight goes away, because the knight is like it's a creature made of the void or something like that. It's not like a living
Right.
thing. But maybe it goes away and goes down to rejoin the abyss or something like that. And
Mhm.
it finds Hornet here. And as we've been talking about through the whole game, Hornet supports others, Hornet helps others, but others also help Hornet. And this is the final thing. And I don't remember the ending enough, but like I'm sure Hornet played a part in getting that ending in Hollow Knight. So maybe it's the knight returning the favor, or maybe it's
Yeah.
just the knight is down there and remembers, like whatever form the knight has taken down there, it remembers Hornet. And the last thing in the game is someone helping Hornet who is helping somebody else. Like this game is so much about helping. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really cool ending and it shocked the hell out of me, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, I did not tie together also the end of like the at the end of the day, Hollow Knight helps Hornet, and so that's great. I love that connection. But yeah, and this is why I need to replay Hollow Knight because I also, I mean, it's been long enough. I don't even really remember the ending I got, but I'm pretty sure it was not great because I did just a single like run through the game.
Yeah.
Um, and this is making me want to replay it because I'm sure there is so much where if you are familiar with Hollow Knight and all of the endings and the deep lore there, this probably makes way more sense because I was just like, where did this come from? What is happening?
Hmm.
It's cool and I'm really digging it, but I'm just here for the ride now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was great.
Also, There are like explicit connections to Hollow Knight in Silksong before this. Like there are lots
Mhm.
of times when Hornet basically says like, I have experience killing a god. And you're
Yeah,
like, yeah, I remember fighting the Hollow Knight or maybe fighting the Radiance or something like that.
right.
Um, so there are those connections. And like, it's not hard to be like, Hornet got captured leaving Hallow Nest from the first game on the outskirts of Farloom or whatever. But
Mhm.
those connections were there. I clocked those as I was playing this. So I just didn't expect the knight to show up at the end and rescue Hornet.
Yeah.
Like that was super cool.
Yeah.
So
I feel like what the timeline is, like how long after whatever happened, in not Deep Nest. I'm forgetting the name of the
Hallow
area.
Nest.
Hallow Nest, yeah. I'm curious what the timeline gap is in between the
Mm,
two experiences now, which I
yeah.
don't think we have an answer for necessarily, but it's just now something I'm curious about.
Yeah. Maybe Mr. Mushroom has the answer. Did you find Mr. Mushroom in
That's
this
what
game?
Okay, I did not, but I'm at the point now where I'm looking up stuff because I'm just trying
Yeah.
to get the things I've missed, get help with the stuff I had trouble with, and that was, I think, the one thing I had read said there was an ending with Mr. Mushroom, but I don't think that's true. I think it's just a side quest, but I have
I
not
think
done it, whatever it
there's an
is.
ending with Mr. Mushroom in the first game. So maybe
Okay,
that's it.
yeah,
But there is a side quest with Mr. Mushroom in Silksong. I don't know the purpose of Mr. Mushroom. I don't know the lore. I just know that he's seemingly always around and he's also from space or something because he shoots
yeah.
off to space if you do his quest. So,
It's so weird.
yeah.
But no, I have not done the Mr. Mushroom stuff. I've just seen stuff online, basically.
Okay. Let's see. A couple other lightning round things. Did you do the flea games? All of them in the
I did
final
not
flea
do
area?
I did not do all of the flea games. That's on my list to do and make sure and get done.
They're fun. The
Yeah.
fleas are just super charming and
Oh, they're
fun
so
to be
cute.
around.
Yeah.
Um, by that point in the game, I was like, forged by fire of this game's difficulty. And the flea games are like bounce things up in the air or do a bunch of pogos in a row. And I was like, I
Hmm.
got this.
Yeah.
I didn't ace them all, but I aced at least one of them, and they were really fun. Let's see. So you did not get kidnapped and taken to the slab. I see
No.
in the notes.
Which I actually, when I saw the notes, I had to Google because I was like, do I not just remember what's going on? And when I Googled kidnapped to the slab, it was I had not experienced that at all. So that was really cool. Uh, Fun little detail that I wish I kind of
Yeah.
experienced because
Yeah.
that's really cool.
I didn't experience it either because I broke the cage that the enemies put on
Yeah.
you. But it is cool. It feels like a callback. The same thing happens in Bloodborne, and you can't break the cage. You just get
Hmm.
whisked away to this weird fucking place in that
Yeah.
game. So that's cool. Other notable things I already talked about in the middle of Mount Fay. I couldn't afford the bench, so I did the second half of Mount Fay without dying the whole time, like white knuckle, like
That's hardcore.
you can't fuck this up. Like it was
Yeah.
very hard.
Wow.
um, and then there was one other thing. I just the courier's quest to take the stuff up to the guy in the Citadel.
Hmm.
Did you do those?
I did, and it took me a
Yeah.
long time to do, but
Yes.
yes. I think what is it? The cuisine one where you have to like find the 5 different fancy foods
Right.
that he likes or something. Yeah. Yeah. It was rough, but I did
There's
it.
um I think one or two of them where you can't you have to like preserve the health of the thing that you're doing, and it's like
Mhm.
you can't run into walls, you can't get hit by enemies. So the strategy that I found and that I actually did is I just killed all the enemies in between and then went back to Belhart, got the thing, and then went back.
That's what I did too. Took me forever.
Yeah, it took a long time. There's the sicko part of my brain that was like, this is awesome. I love this right now.
Mhm.
Um, RIP to one of the people in the Discord. I forget who it was, but they had the rasher on like 1 pip of health left, and they ran into the door in front of the room where
Oh,
the guy is and broke it
that
and
I'm
had to
so
go reset it.
sorry.
That would, yeah,
That's really sad.
like I said, RIP, that sucks. Uh, I think I might have thrown my Switch if that would have happened to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say there are so many moments in this game where like you get by on the skin of your teeth
Yep.
and it's the best feeling ever, but then so many moments where you don't. And I have never felt such despair while playing a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun because I don't normally I get usually emotionally invested in stories. I don't normally get emotionally invested in like how I'm playing, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. So it was a unique experience for me, a really fun experience for me. That really has only happened maybe a couple times where it's like maybe Outer Wilds and Hollow Knight, honestly, are the other two times where I'm just like mechanically this is making me so invested as well.
Yep. It all just goes back to Team Cherry just being really fucking good at mechanics. Like the
Yeah.
basics of platforming and combat and stuff are so tight that
Hmm.
basically anything they asked of me, I may have been like, you want me to do what? When they were like, take the delivery thing up to the top of Mount Fay to the mask maker guy,
Oh yeah.
I was like, you want me to take it where? And then I did it.
Yeah.
And it was fun. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Team Cherry believed in me before I believed in me.
that's
So
right.
there we
Yes.
go. I also wanted to shout out the fact that you can buy a home. I
Oh
am a
yeah.
homeowner in Silksong,
Yes.
and I cannot describe the joy that I got from saving up the rosary beads to decorate this house, to paint it. That was such a unexpected thing, and it honestly, when I was getting frustrated, I would go grind for rosaries in sort of in the Citadel, honestly, to be able to just buy stuff for my house, and that was a really fun side quest sort of situation that I set up for myself, and I
Hmm.
really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
What color did you paint your house?
That's a good question. I don't remember. If there was a blue, it was probably that. I want to
There
say it
was a
was
blue.
I want to
Yeah.
say it was blue.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was nice. I did go back to the house every now and then to just kind of check on, look at the stuff, drop off the collectibles I picked up. You can get one of those little bird guys that will like leave some rosaries in your mailbox or
Mhm.
something and like, you know, there's a lot of charm in the world of Silksong that
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something beautiful in the way that like the world is so terrible all the time, but like you have these like pockets of beauty and support and all of that stuff throughout it.
Yeah.
Not just like visual beauty, because even when things are terrible, the game is gorgeous. But
Mhm.
um, stuff like the house and stuff like finding your little communities and helping out in Bellheart and at the first shrine and in Bone Bottom and those places. Oh, there's another lightning round question to interrupt a nice little soliloquy. Did you have the tyrant bug come destroy Bone Bottom?
I don't think I did.
So there's a side quest to hunt these things. I think they're called skull tyrants. They're like these.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I did. Yep.
Did it destroy Bone Bottom?
Yeah, well, is that the one where afterwards you have to like rebuild the bridge and everything, or is that different? No,
You might have
maybe
to
not.
rebuild. You have to rebuild a lot of stuff because it will like.
Yeah.
I think it's like if you get the side quest and you don't like kill the thing fast enough, it will come attack Bone Bottom, and you have to
I think
you
I
have to do a
must have
boss
done
fight, and like
it.
some people die, and it's like it's pretty rough.
Okay, no, I didn't have that. I feel like I fought a skull tyrant, but I
Yeah,
don't think it destroyed Bone Bottom. I know I had to make like a little bridge. We made a statue,
right.
but I think that was it.
There's a lot of stuff. It could support a whole lot
People
more
died.
podcasting.
Wow.
Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah. There's like a couple of the pilgrims died in the skull tyrant attack. It's pretty messed up. There was and so that happened, and then there's another one up by the guy that makes you pay to go inside his shop.
Yeah.
There's a door where there's like this beast pounding on the
Mhm.
door, and you can hear it from the other side. And
Yes.
you have to go around, and then when you get around to the other side, you can fight the thing. But I was on low health, and I like just opened the door and ran out and healed. but when I went back, the thing was gone. And I was like, oh shit, is this going to be another bone bottom situation? Got more blood on my hands for letting this thing out.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I looked this up because I was like, what the heck is this? This is from the Hollow Knight wiki. So whoever's managing that, kudos, thank you. It says there is a 30% chance that after defeating the first Skull Tyrant, if Hornet has reached either Blasted Steps, the Citadel, or Sinner's Road, and then rests at a bench outside of Mos Grotto or the Marrow, a second Skull Tyrant appears and rampages in from the east side of Bone Bottom. So you hit a 30% chance instance of something happening.
Okay. I love that it's not just going to happen in
outrageous.
everyone's game.
Yeah. What the heck? Wow.
Wild.
That's cool.
Yep. I think that is Hollow Knight Silksong well covered for our purposes. Jenny, thank you for giving me so much of your time, and thanks for the great conversation as always. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I am so appreciative to be able to talk Silksong with you, especially again as someone who is not a person who would say like, "Hey, I'm a really good like mechanically inclined gamer." I was really excited to talk about it because I think even with the difficulty, this is a game that if you want to put in the time and energy and persistence, for many people, I think it's well worth it. And I feel like an example of one of those types of people. And I wanted to be able to share how much I love this game, even knowing that I took a long time to get through it and to play. So yeah, thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, no problem. Of course, always happy to have you on the show. So already looking forward to the next one, whatever that will be. So for everyone who's still with us at the end, one more time, I will let you know down in the show notes, you can find links to everything that Jenny does, podcast, YouTube channel, and many other things around game development work and stuff like that. Lots of stuff. Please go check it out and support Jenny however you can. And yeah, how do I end the show? We've been podcasting for so long. Thank you all for being here through to the end. You're my hero if you're still here, and tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog.
You should listen to the Character Issues podcast. It's a scientific podcast where me, Brian Edwards, your host du jour, and my co-hosts, Leah Haydu.
Everyone loves Blitzball. I hate Blitzball. Fuck Blitzball.
And Rich Davison.
Are you implying that he intentionally tried to run over his daughter and then sort of bloviated a journey around Silent Hill to make sure that she could bleed out in the process?
Work towards building a list of the greatest video game characters of all time. Every character will be ranked. Every character shall be ranked. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you find your podcast. Character Issues is available for download. So, if you're interested in the hard-nosed science and definitely not a comedy podcast hosted by a couple of numbskulls, you should check out the Character Issues podcast because, let's face it, it's better if you do.
Do you have a gaming subscription service like Xbox Game Pass or a crazy backlog and don't know what to play next? Well, 1H1D might be for you. Join me, Chris, and my college buddy Tom as we play a random game or a requested game for an hour and decide if it's worth playing past that hour. We go over the good, the bad, and maybe some little tidbits about the development you might not have known. Got 30 minutes? Give us a try, and if you like it, throw us a 5-star review. Try something new. You never know what might be your next favorite game.